Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of Fortress Station Olympus and watched the alien ships approach. They were beautiful in a way that made her uncomfortable. The vessels gleamed like polished silver, covered in symbols she could not read. There were 12 of them, moving in perfect formation through the darkness of space. She had been expecting this day for 3 years. Ever since the long-range probes detected the Empire expanding toward human territory, Terran Command had been preparing. Now the Caltharian Galactic Empire was here, at the edge of human space, and everything was about to change. "Admiral, the lead ship is hailing us," said Commander Park from the communication station. His voice was steady, but Sarah could hear the tension underneath. "Put them through," she said. The view screen flickered to life. The alien who appeared was tall and thin, with blue-gray skin and 4 golden eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its face. It wore robes that seemed to shift colors as it moved. When it spoke, the translation software converted its words into English with barely any delay. "Greetings, primitive species. I am Lord Diplomat Vex Thor of the Caltharian Galactic Empire. We bring you wonderful news. The Empire has finally reached your small territory, and we offer you the great honor of joining our civilization." Sarah kept her face neutral. She had read the intelligence reports about the Caltharians. They ruled 10,000 worlds. They had been in space for 40,000 years. They saw humanity as children who had barely learned to walk among the stars. "Welcome to the Terran Exclusion Zone, Lord Diplomat," Sarah replied. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of Terran Command. We appreciate your visit, but we must inform you that this space belongs to humanity. All 47 human star systems are sovereign territory." Vex Thor made a sound that the translator could not quite interpret. It might have been laughter. "How charming. You have been in space for what, 300 of your years? We have been traveling the stars for longer than your species has had written language. But do not worry. The Empire is generous. We will allow you to keep your primitive customs and beliefs. All you must do is accept our protection." "Protection from what?" Sarah asked. "From yourselves, of course," Vex Thor said. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence like ripples on water. "Young species are always dangerous. You fight among yourselves. You waste resources. You make mistakes that could endanger the entire region of space. The Empire brings order. We bring peace. We bring civilization." Sarah clasped her hands behind her back. "And what would this protection cost us?" "The terms are quite reasonable," Vex Thor said. He touched a device on his wrist and text appeared on Sarah's screen. She read through it quickly, her jaw tightening with each line. Humanity would have to reduce its military to 10% of current strength. All human worlds would accept imperial governors to oversee major decisions. Humans would pay tribute of 20% of all resources and industrial output. Human ships would require imperial permission to travel between human systems. Humans would be classified as a tributary species with protected status, subject to imperial law. "You want us to give up our independence," Sarah said quietly. "We want you to accept reality," Vex Thor replied. "You are 47 worlds. We are 10,000. Your entire species numbers less than 100 billion. The Empire contains over 20 trillion citizens. This is not negotiation. This is simply the way things are. You can accept peacefully and prosper under our guidance, or you can resist and be crushed. Those are your only options." Sarah looked at the terms again. She thought about Earth, where she was born. She thought about the resource wars that had nearly destroyed humanity before they reached the stars. She thought about all the blood that had been spilled in humanity's long, violent history. She thought about why humans had spread to the stars in the first place. Freedom. The chance to build something better. The determination to never bow to anyone ever again. "No," she said. Vex Thor's 4 eyes widened. "No? Perhaps you did not understand." "Let me explain again." "I understood perfectly," Sarah interrupted. "The answer is no. Humanity rejects your offer. We reject your protection. We reject your empire. You have 72 hours to leave the Terran Exclusion Zone. If you are still here after that time, you will be fired upon." For a long moment, Vex Thor simply stared at her. Then he began to laugh. It was a strange sound, musical and mocking at the same time. "You cannot be serious. You are threatening us? You are threatening the Caltharian Empire? Do you have any idea what we could do to your worlds?" "Yes," Sarah said. "Do you have any idea what we could do to yours?" Vex Thor stopped laughing. "Is that a threat?" "It is a statement of fact. You have 72 hours. I suggest you use them wisely." She cut the transmission. The view screen went dark. Around her, the bridge crew of Fortress Olympus was silent. They had just told the most powerful empire in the galaxy to leave. They had just rejected peace and chosen war. Commander Park finally spoke. "Admiral, did we just do what I think we did?" "Yes," Sarah said. "Signal all human systems. Activate Protocol Thermopylae. The line is drawn. They shall not pass." In the medical bay of Olympus Station, Dr. Elena Volkov received the alert on her tablet. Protocol Thermopylae. Her hands shook slightly as she read the words. She had hoped this day would never come. Elena was the chief of Terran weapons research. She knew things that most humans did not know. She knew about the secret weapons that humanity had been building for decades. She knew about the contingency plans. She knew what would happen if this went wrong. She stood up and walked to the secure vault at the back of her laboratory. She placed her hand on the scanner, looked into the retinal scanner, and spoke her authorization code. The door opened with a hiss. Inside were the plans for Project Ragnarok. The name said everything. These were weapons designed for one purpose: to make sure that if humanity fell, they would not fall alone. Elena had spent 10 years working on these weapons. She had told herself it was necessary, that humanity needed insurance against species that might want to destroy them. But she had also hoped they would never be used. Now that hope was fading. 3,000 light-years away on the Caltharian homeworld, Emperor Zalthar received Lord Diplomat Vexthor's report. The Emperor was ancient, nearly 500 years old, kept alive by advanced medical technology. He had ruled the Empire for 2 centuries. They refused, the Emperor said. His voice was soft, almost gentle. That made it more frightening. "Yes, Divine Majesty," Vexthor replied via quantum link. "The human admiral rejected our terms and ordered us to leave their space. She even threatened to fire upon our diplomatic vessels." The Emperor was quiet for a moment.
"How long has it been since anyone refused the Empire?"
His advisor, War Master Krell, consulted his records. 8,000 years, Divine Majesty. The last species that refused was the Draconians. They were eliminated in 3 months. The humans know this, yes? They have access to galactic history? Yes, Divine Majesty. They know what happens to species that defy the Empire. Then they are either insane or they believe they can win, the Emperor said. Which is it? The humans are not insane, Krell said. Our intelligence suggests they are actually quite rational. But they are young. They do not understand the true scale of the Empire. They think that because they have defeated each other in their primitive wars, they can defeat us. The Emperor stood and walked to the window of his palace. Outside, the city stretched for hundreds of kilometers, towers of crystal and metal reaching into the sky. This was the capital of 10,000 worlds. This was the center of galactic civilization. Send 3 battle fleets, the Emperor said. 3,000 ships. Show them the price of defiance. But do not destroy them completely. We want them to surrender. Dead tributaries pay no taxes. It will be done, Divine Majesty, Krell said. Back on Fortress Olympus, Sarah Chen was meeting with her senior officers. Captain Marcus Webb, commander of the 7th Fighter Wing, was young and eager. He had been born on Mars and had never seen Earth. He represented the new generation of humans who thought of space as home. Admiral, what are our orders? Marcus asked. Sarah brought up a holographic display of human space. All 47 systems glowed blue. Around them, the red markers showed where Imperial forces were gathering. The Empire will send fleets to crush us, Sarah said. They will expect us to fight a traditional battle. Big ships against big ships. They will expect us to lose quickly and surrender. What are we going to do instead? Asked Commander Park. Sarah smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. We are going to fight the way humans have always fought when facing stronger enemies. We are going to make them bleed for every light year. We are going to show them that some prices are too high to pay. She zoomed in on the border system of New Sparta. This is where they will come first. It is the most direct route into human space. The system appears lightly defended. They will expect easy victory. Appears, Marcus said. We have spent 30 years fortifying New Sparta, Sarah said. 3 entire asteroid belts have been converted into weapons platforms. Every rock larger than a house has engines and guns. We have enough firepower hidden in that system to destroy 1,000 ships. The officers stared at the display. Commander Park spoke slowly. We have been preparing for this for 30 years? Longer, Sarah said. Terran Command has been preparing for hostile first contact since the day we left Earth. We have never forgotten our history. We know what happens when the strong meet the weak. We swore that humanity would never be the weak ones again. Dr. Volkov joined the meeting via video link. Her face looked tired. Admiral, I need to inform you that Project Ragnarok is ready for deployment if needed. Sarah nodded. I hope it will not be needed, Doctor. But thank you. What is Project Ragnarok? Marcus asked. Something we pray we never have to use, Sarah said. Now let us go over the battle plan for New Sparta. The 72 hours passed quickly. Vex Thor's diplomatic vessels remained at the edge of the Terran exclusion zone, refusing to leave. They transmitted messages back to the Empire, reporting on human military positions and strength. When the deadline expired, Sarah Chen gave the order. Warning shots were fired across the bow of the lead Caltharian ship. The vessels immediately activated their shields and began to withdraw. But they did not leave. They retreated just outside weapons range and waited. 1 week later, the first Imperial battle fleet arrived at New Sparta. 1,000 warships, each larger than anything humanity had ever built. They moved in perfect formation, shields glowing, weapons charging. Admiral Chen watched from the command center deep inside Olympus Station. She had deployed half of Terran Command's fleet to New Sparta. 300 ships against 1,000. The Empire would see the numbers and be confident. They would be wrong. Signal to all units, Sarah said. Hold position until they cross the designated line. Weapons free once they enter the kill zone, and may whatever gods are listening forgive us for what we are about to do. On the lead Imperial warship, Eternal Glory, the fleet commander studied the human positions with contempt. 300 small ships against 1,000 Imperial vessels. This would be over in minutes. All ships advanced, he commanded. Destroy the human fleet. Show them the price of defying the Empire. The Imperial fleet surged forward, crossing into the asteroid belt that marked the outer edge of New Sparta system. And then the asteroids opened fire. Thousands of hidden weapons platforms activated simultaneously. Railguns launched solid metal projectiles at impossible speeds. Missile pods released swarms of nuclear-tipped warheads. Laser arrays focused their beams on Imperial shields. But the most terrifying weapons were the relativistic kill vehicles. Humanity had taken large asteroids, attached powerful engines, and accelerated them to 40% of light speed. Then they had simply aimed them at pre-calculated intercept points. The Empire's energy shields were designed to stop lasers and plasma. They were not designed to stop solid objects moving at relativistic speeds. When the first kill vehicle hit an Imperial cruiser, it went through the shield like it was not there. The kinetic energy was so great that the cruiser simply exploded, torn apart at the molecular level. In the space of 30 seconds, 600 Imperial ships were destroyed. Half the fleet gone in the blink of an eye. The remaining ships tried to retreat, but now the human fleet was moving. 300 ships, smaller and faster than the Imperial vessels, darted in and out of the asteroid field. They used the rocks for cover, appearing only long enough to fire before disappearing again. The Imperial fleet commander could not believe what was happening. This was supposed to be easy. The humans were supposed to be primitives. How did they have weapons like this? How had they killed so many ships so quickly? He tried to regroup his forces, but the humans would not let him. Every time he gathered ships together, another relativistic weapon would tear through them. Every time he tried to advance, more hidden platforms would open fire. After 6 hours of battle, the Imperial fleet retreated. Of the 1,000 ships that had entered New Sparta, only 340 limped away. The human fleet had lost 18 ships. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Caltharian Empire had been defeated, not by another empire, but by 47 human worlds. The species that had ruled for 40,000 years had been bloodied by children who had been in space for only 3 centuries. On the Imperial homeworld, Emperor Zalthar received the reports in silence. Then he stood and walked to his war room. He looked at the holographic display of the galaxy, at the 10,000 worlds that bowed to his rule. Send 15 battle fleets, he said. 15,000 ships. I do not care what it costs. I do not care how long it takes. Humanity has defied the Empire. They have embarrassed us in front of the entire galaxy. They must be crushed completely. They must be made an example of. No one defies the Caltharian Empire. No one. On Fortress Olympus, Admiral Sarah Chen received word of the Empire's response. 15,000 ships, 15 battle fleets. coming for 47 human worlds. She thought about the soldiers who had died at New Sparta. She thought about the billions of humans living on worlds across human space. She thought about the choice her species had made. She opened a channel to all human systems. When she spoke, her voice was broadcast to every ship, every station, every colony from Earth to the farthest human outpost. Citizens of humanity, the Kaltharian Empire has rejected our right to exist as free people. They have sent 15,000 warships to crush us into submission. They believe that because they are many and we are few, we will surrender. They believe that because they are old and we are young, we will bow. They are wrong. She paused, letting her words sink in. Humanity has never bowed. Not to tyrants, not to empires, not to gods. We have fought for our freedom for thousands of years. We have bled for it. We have died for it. And we will not stop now. The Terran exclusion zone is closed. Our space is our own, and we will defend it with fire, and will until every last one of us is dead. She cut the transmission and turned to her officers. Prepare for the next wave. This is only the beginning. Across human space, on 47 worlds, billions of humans heard her words and made their choice. They chose freedom. They chose defiance. They chose to stand and fight no matter the cost. The war had begun. 6 months had passed since the Battle of New Sparta. The galaxy was watching humanity with new eyes. The species that everyone had dismissed as young and weak had destroyed an Imperial battle fleet. Now 15 more fleets were coming, and no one knew if the humans could survive. Lord Diplomat Vex Thor stood on the bridge of the Eternal Glory, the flagship of Imperial Fleet 1. He was no longer a diplomat. After the disaster at New Sparta, he had been stripped of his diplomatic status and reassigned to Fleet 1 as an advisor. The Emperor wanted someone who understood humans to help plan the next attack. Vex Thor stared at the view screen, showing the human border system they were approaching. It was called Thermopylae Station, named after some ancient human battle. The system looked empty. No ships, no stations, just a few warning buoys broadcasting the same message over and over. Turn back. Final warning, turn back. Final warning. Fleet Commander Ralmok was not impressed. Primitive intimidation tactics. They think automated warnings will scare us after we have assembled 15 fleets? Pathetic. Commander, I recommend caution, Vex Thor said. The humans are not— I know what happened at New Sparta, Ralmok interrupted. That fleet commander was overconfident and careless. He walked into an ambush. We will not make the same mistake. We will sweep the system with scanners. We will identify their hiding places. Then we will destroy them systematically. Fleet 1 advanced slowly, scanning every asteroid, every planet, every moon. The sensors showed nothing. No hidden weapons, no ships waiting in ambush. The system appeared to be exactly what it looked like, empty space, you see? Ralmok said to Vex Thor. Nothing. They abandoned this system because they cannot defend it. They are running scared, retreating deeper into their territory. Perhaps, Vex Thor said, but something felt wrong. He had spent months studying human history and psychology. Humans did not abandon territory without a fight, and they never ever ran scared. All ships advance to the next system, Ralmok ordered. We will chase the humans back to their homeworld and— The first ship exploded before he could finish his sentence. Then another. Then 10 more. Then 100. The asteroids that the sensors had shown as empty rock were not empty. They were hollow, filled with human soldiers and weapons and life support. The moment the Imperial fleet had crossed the boundary line, those soldiers had activated their weapons and fired. But these were not the relativistic weapons from New Sparta. These were different. Worse. Quantum cascade torpedoes ripped through Imperial shields by phasing in and out of normal space. Nuclear pulse arrays detonated in precise patterns. Overwhelming shield generators with synchronized blasts. And the worst were the viral code weapons. Malicious programs that jumped from ship to ship through their own communication networks, shutting down systems and turning Imperial weapons against each other. Captain Marcus Webb led his fighter squadron through the chaos. His ship was small and fast, designed for close combat. He and his pilots had trained for this moment for years. They knew every trick, every tactic, every desperate maneuver that might keep them alive for one more second. Gold Squadron, form up on me, Marcus ordered. Hit the carrier on the left flank. Quick strike, then pull back before their point defense can track us. His pilots responded instantly. 12 human fighters accelerated toward an Imperial carrier that was 10,000 times their size. They launched their missiles in a spread pattern. forcing the carrier's defense systems to choose between multiple targets. Half the missiles were destroyed, but half got through. The carrier's shields flickered and died. Marcus led his squadron in close, their guns tearing into the exposed hull. Then they were past, dodging return fire, already accelerating toward their next target. "Good kill, Gold Squadron," Marcus said. "Now let's do it again." On Fortress Olympus, Admiral Sarah Chen watched the battle through multiple displays. Fleet 1 was losing ships at a catastrophic rate, but they were not retreating. The Imperial commander was trying to push through, to break the human defensive line by sheer force of numbers. It was not working. "Admiral, we are detecting a second Imperial fleet entering the system," Commander Park reported. "Fleet 2 approximately 1,000 ships," Sarah nodded. This was expected. The Empire was throwing multiple fleets at them, trying to overwhelm human defenses. But humanity had prepared for this too. "Activate the secondary platforms," Sarah ordered, "and signal the third Terran fleet to begin their attack run." Hidden deeper in the system, another wave of weapons platforms came online. But these were not stationary. These were mobile platforms that had been drifting on silent running, looking like space debris. Now they activated their engines and moved to intercept Fleet 2. At the same time, 300 human warships that had been hiding behind the system's star used its gravity to slingshot themselves at incredible speed toward Fleet 2's flank. The Empire's sensors had been focused on the battle ahead. They did not see the attack coming from behind. Dr. Elena Volkov watched from her laboratory on Olympus. She had not slept in 3 days. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the casualty reports. Thousands of Imperial soldiers dead, hundreds of human pilots lost. All because of weapons she had helped design. She told herself it was necessary. The Empire had chosen this war. They had demanded humanity's surrender. What choice did humans have but to fight? But the question haunted her. At what point did defenders become monsters? At what point did the necessity of survival justify any action? Her assistant, Dr. Ramos, entered the laboratory. "Dr. Volkov, Admiral Chen is asking for an update on Project Ragnarok's readiness." "It is ready," Elena said quietly. "God help us all, but it is ready." In space above the battle, Lord Vexthor watched his worst fears come true. Fleet 1 had lost 700 ships. Fleet 2 was losing ships almost as fast. The humans were not just winning. They were dominating. He had tried to warn the fleet commanders. He had told them that humans were different, that they had been fighting wars since before they had written language, that their entire history was one long lesson in violence and survival. But the commanders had not listened. They thought the Empire's size and technology would be enough. They did not understand that humanity had spent 300 years in space, doing nothing but preparing for this moment. Every human ship was a weapon. Every human colony was a fortress. Every human soldier had trained their entire life for war. "Commander Ralmok, we must retreat," Vexthor said. "We cannot win this battle. We are losing too many ships." Ralmok's face was pale with shock. "Retreat? Retreat from primitives? The Emperor will have me executed. The Emperor will have you executed if you lose the entire fleet," Vexthor shot back. "Look at the displays. We are being slaughtered." On the view screen, another Imperial carrier exploded as human fighters swarmed over it, like insects tearing apart something much larger than themselves. The carrier's death released a wave of escape pods, but many of them were destroyed by debris before they could get clear. Ralmok finally made his decision. "All ships, retreat. Fall back to the rally point." The surviving Imperial ships turned and began to withdraw. The human forces let them go. They did not pursue. They simply held their position, watching the Empire flee. Marcus Webb wanted to chase them. He wanted to keep fighting, to make sure they could never come back. But his orders were clear. Hold the line, do not overextend. So he watched the Imperial ships jump to faster-than-light travel and disappear. "Gold Squadron, return to base," he said. "We did good work today." His second-in-command, Lieutenant Chen, laughed with exhausted relief. "We are still alive. That is the best work we could have done." Back on the Imperial homeworld, Emperor Zalthar listened to the reports with growing fury. Fleet 1 had retreated with only 300 ships remaining. Fleet 2 had lost 400 ships. In one battle, the Empire had lost 1,800 warships. "This is impossible," the Emperor said. "How can 47 worlds stand against the Empire?" War Master Krell had an answer, but he was afraid to say it. Finally he spoke. "Divine Majesty, I have been studying the humans. I believe I understand why we are losing. Explain, the Emperor demanded. The Empire has not fought a real war in 8,000 years, Krell said carefully. We maintain fleets for intimidation and police actions. We crush pre-spaceflight civilizations that cannot fight back. But we have not faced an equal opponent in millennia. We have forgotten what real war looks like. And the humans remember? The Emperor said. The humans never stopped fighting, Krell said. Their entire history is war. War against each other. War against their environment. War against extinction. They reached space not because they wanted to explore, but because they needed to escape a planet they had nearly destroyed with warfare. They have never known peace. War is in their blood, in their bones, in their very souls. The Emperor was silent for a long time. Then we will show them war on a scale they cannot imagine. Order all 15 fleets to converge on the human border. No more cautious advances. We will hit them with 15,000 ships at once. We will break them through sheer overwhelming force. Krell bowed. It will be done, Divine Majesty. 3 months later, the main Imperial assault began. 15 fleets, 15,000 warships assembled at the edge of human space. This time there would be no mistakes. The fleets would advance together, supporting each other. Human tricks and ambushes would not work against such massive numbers. Admiral Sarah Chen looked at the intelligence reports and felt cold fear settle in her stomach. 15,000 ships, even with all of humanity's preparations. Facing that many vessels at once would be difficult. The humans might actually lose. She called a meeting of all senior commanders. The holographic display showed every human fleet position, every defensive installation, every fallback point if the line broke. The Empire is done playing games, Sarah said. They are bringing everything they have. We cannot fight them head-on and win, so we will not fight them head-on. What is the plan? Captain Webb asked. Sarah highlighted several systems on the map. We will let them enter human space. We will let them think they are winning. We will trade space for time, pulling back slowly, making them fight for every system. And while they advance, we will attack their supply lines. We will hit their fuel depots. We will destroy their repair facilities. We will make them bleed resources until they cannot sustain the offensive. Commander Park frowned. Admiral, that means abandoning colonies. That means civilians will be at risk. I know, Sarah said quietly. But if we lose the fleets, we lose everything. We have to trust that our people can survive until we push the Empire back. Dr. Volkov spoke up from her link. Admiral, if the Empire reaches the core systems, should I prepare Project Ragnarok for deployment? Every officer in the room turned to look at Sarah. They all knew what Project Ragnarok was now. The ultimate deterrent. Weapons that could destroy entire planets. The promise that if humanity fell, they would take the Empire with them. Not yet, Sarah said. But keep it ready. If things go badly, if the Empire threatens Earth itself, we may have no choice. The Imperial assault began 3 days later. 15,000 ships crossed into human space simultaneously at multiple points. They moved in massive formations, their shields overlapping, their weapons covering each other. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The human forces pulled back, fighting defensive actions, slowing the Imperial advance but not stopping it. System after system fell to the Empire. Colonies were occupied. Human civilians found themselves under Imperial rule for the first time. But the occupation was not what the Empire expected. Human civilians did not submit peacefully. They sabotaged Imperial equipment. They fed false information to Imperial intelligence. They disappeared into the wilderness of their worlds and waged guerrilla warfare against the occupiers. On the colony world of New Harvest, the Imperial garrison commander could not understand what was happening. The humans had surrendered the planet without a major fight. He had expected gratitude for his mercy. Instead, his soldiers were being attacked daily. Equipment disappeared. Supplies were poisoned. His troops were afraid to leave their fortifications. These are farmers, he shouted at his staff. Why are farmers fighting like trained soldiers? His intelligence officer had done research. Sir, according to human law, every colony citizen must serve in their planetary militia. These farmers have all had military training. They know how to fight, and they know this terrain better than we do. The commander realized too late what a mistake the Empire had made. Occupying human worlds was not a victory. It was a trap. Every planet tied down thousands of Imperial soldiers. Every colony drained resources. The Empire was not conquering humanity. It was bleeding itself dry, trying to hold territory that could not be held. Admiral Sarah Chen saw this in the intelligence reports and allowed herself a small smile. The Empire thought it was winning. It thought advancing deeper into human space meant victory, but every step forward made the Empire weaker, not stronger. "Signal to all fleets," she said. "Phase 2 begins now. It is time to cut them off and destroy them." Human strike forces that had been hiding in the outer systems suddenly appeared behind the Imperial advance. They attacked supply convoys. They destroyed fuel depots. They cut communication lines. The great Imperial fleet suddenly found themselves deep in human space, running low on supplies with their line of retreat under attack. Captain Webb led raid after raid, his squadron growing more skilled with each battle. They learned to predict Imperial tactics. They learned to exploit Imperial weaknesses. They learned that the key to defeating a larger enemy was to never fight fair. "Hit and run," Marcus told his pilots. "Never stay in one place. Never give them a target. Make them afraid. Make them doubt. Make them wish they had never heard of humanity." As the human counteroffensive grew in strength, Lord Vexthor finally understood what the humans had done. They had fought the perfect defensive war. They had let the Empire extend itself too far, then cut it off. The 15 Imperial fleets were now trapped, unable to resupply, unable to retreat, slowly being destroyed by an enemy that refused to fight a conventional battle. "We lost this war before it began," Vexthor said to Commander Ralmok. "The humans were never trying to defeat us in open battle. They were trying to make us defeat ourselves, and we did exactly what they wanted." Ralmok had learned to listen to Vexthor. "What do you recommend?" "We must negotiate," Vexthor said. "We must accept that humanity will never submit. We must recognize them as equals and make peace." "The Emperor will never accept that," Ralmok said. "Then the Empire will fall," Vexthor replied. "Because if we cannot defeat 47 human worlds, how can we hold 10,000 other worlds when they see our weakness?" The warning was prophetic. Across the Empire, tributary species began to watch the war with new interest. If humans could defy the Empire, why could not they? The whispers of rebellion began to spread through the galaxy like wildfire. The Emperor ordered the fleets to continue fighting, but it was too late. The great Imperial offensive was collapsing. Ships were running out of fuel. Soldiers were running out of supplies. The human forces pressed harder, sensing victory. Admiral Sarah Chen gave the order for the final push. "All fleets advance. Drive them out of human space. Show them that the Terran exclusion zone is exactly that. Excluded to all who would conquer us." The human fleet surged forward, and the Empire broke. The remaining Imperial ships retreated in disorder, abandoning occupied colonies, leaving behind thousands of soldiers who were stranded on hostile worlds. The war was not over, but the tide had turned. Humanity had proven that they could not be conquered. They had proven that freedom was worth any price. And across the galaxy, 1 billion enslaved species looked up at the stars and wondered, if humans could be free, could they? The war had been going on for 16 months. The Empire was losing, but it refused to accept defeat. Emperor Zalthar watched his empire begin to crack. 3 tributary species had declared independence. Pirates were raiding Imperial supply lines. The galactic economy was suffering because trade routes through Imperial space were no longer safe. But the Emperor could not admit defeat. To admit that 47 human worlds had beaten the 10,000-world empire would destroy everything. The empire existed because everyone believed it was invincible. Take away that belief and the whole structure would collapse. "We need a decisive victory," the Emperor told War Master Krell. "Find me a human world that we can defeat. Show the galaxy that the Empire can still win." Krell studied the tactical maps. Most human worlds were too heavily defended. Attacking them would cost more ships than the Empire could afford to lose. But there was one possibility. Divine Majesty, there is the colony world of New Harvest. It has a population of 400 million, but only light military defenses, 1 orbital defense station and a single cruiser. If we can take New Harvest and hold it, we can show that humanity is not invincible. The Emperor nodded. "Do it. Send War Master Krell with 3 battle fleets. Take the planet, hold it. Make an example of it." War Master Krell assembled 3,000 ships and jumped to New Harvest. The planet was beautiful from orbit. Green continents, blue oceans, white clouds. It looked peaceful. It looked like an easy target. Krell's ships emerged from faster-than-light travel and surrounded the planet. The single human cruiser, the TCS Defender, moved to intercept. It was tiny compared to the Imperial fleet. 1 ship against 3,000. Human vessel, stand down, Krell transmitted. You cannot win this fight. Surrender the planet and your people will be treated with mercy. The captain of the Defender was Commander Lisa Zhao. She looked at the overwhelming force arrayed against her world and made her choice. This is Commander Zhao of the Terran cruiser Defender. New Harvest is a sovereign human world. We do not recognize Imperial authority. If you attack this planet, you attack all of humanity. You have been warned. You have one cruiser, Krell said. We have 3,000 ships. Be reasonable. Reasonable? Lisa laughed. Humans stopped being reasonable the day you tried to enslave us. You want this world? Come and take it. The Defender opened fire. Its weapons could not hurt the Imperial fleet, but it fought anyway, buying time. On the planet below, alarms were sounding. The civilian population was mobilizing. War Master Krell destroyed the Defender with a single salvo. The human cruiser exploded in a ball of fire. Now nothing stood between the Imperial fleet and the planet. Land-ground forces, Krell ordered. Occupy the major cities. We will show these farmers what happens when they defy the Empire. Transport ships descended through the atmosphere, carrying 50,000 Imperial soldiers. They landed near the capital city, expecting to find frightened civilians ready to surrender. Instead, they found an army. Every adult human on New Harvest was part of the planetary militia. They had trained for this. They had prepared for this. When the Imperial soldiers left their transport ships, they were met with gunfire from 100 directions. The battle for New Harvest's capital became a nightmare for the Imperial forces. The humans knew every street, every building, every sewer tunnel. They had stockpiled weapons for decades, and they fought with a fury that shocked the Imperial troops. Imperial soldiers were trained for occupation duty and police actions. They were not trained to fight an entire population that refused to surrender. Every house was a fortress. Every civilian was a potential combatant. Children threw explosives from windows. Elderly citizens sniped at soldiers from rooftops. War Master Krell watched the casualty reports with growing horror. He was losing hundreds of soldiers per hour. The humans were not just fighting. They were winning the ground battle. This is impossible, Krell said. They are farmers. How are farmers defeating trained soldiers? His second-in-command had an answer. Sir, these are not just farmers. Every human world requires mandatory military service. These people have all had combat training, and they are fighting for their homes. Our soldiers are fighting for conquest. There's a difference. Krell made a decision. If we cannot take the planet by ground assault, we will force surrender from orbit. Target the capital city. Fire a demonstration shot. Show them we can destroy their cities if they do not submit. The order was a war crime by galactic law. Deliberately targeting civilian population centers was forbidden. But Krell was desperate. He needed a victory. An Imperial cruiser charged its main weapons and fired at the outskirts of the capital city. The beam weapon was supposed to destroy a single square kilometer as a warning. Instead, something went wrong. The targeting system miscalculated. The beam hit the city's main hospital. 3,000 human civilians died instantly. Most of them were patients, doctors, and nurses. The hospital had been clearly marked with medical symbols. It should have been protected under the laws of war. Admiral Sarah Chen received word of the attack on the bridge of Fortress Olympus. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she turned to her communications officer. Send a message to all Imperial forces. Tell them that by attacking that hospital, they have crossed a line. Tell them that Terran Command is removing all restraint protocols. Tell them that the gloves are off. Dr. Elena Volkov received the order in her laboratory. Remove all restraint protocols. She knew what that meant. Until now, humanity had been fighting carefully, trying to minimize Imperial casualties, hoping to leave room for peace negotiations. Not anymore. Deploy the Indomitable, Elena said quietly, and activate the stellar compression weapons. The TCS Indomitable was humanity's newest warship. It was not designed for exploration or commerce. It was designed for one purpose, to kill enemy ships as efficiently as possible. It was larger than any human vessel ever built, covered in weapons, powered by reactors that would have been considered dangerously overpowered on any other ship. Captain Marcus Webb had been promoted to command the Indomitable after his success in fighter operations. He sat in the command chair and looked at his orders. Proceed to New Harvest. Engage Imperial forces. No restrictions. No mercy, you heard the Admiral, Marcus said to his crew. No more pulling punches. No more fighting with one hand tied behind our backs. The Empire wanted to see what humanity can really do. Let us show them. The Indomitable and the Third Terran Fleet jumped to New Harvest. They emerged behind the Imperial position, catching the 3,000 ships by surprise. But this time the humans did not use hit-and-run tactics. This time they attacked head-on. The Indomitable's main weapon was something humanity had only tested once before. It was called a stellar compression cannon. It created a microscopic black hole that existed for less than a second before evaporating. But in that second, anything near it was crushed by gravity so intense that atoms were torn apart. Marcus gave the order. Fire. The stellar compression cannon activated. The beam was invisible, but its effect was not. 3 Imperial carriers simply disappeared. Not exploded, not destroyed. They were crushed out of existence, compressed down to nothing, gone as if they had never been. The Imperial fleet panicked. They had never seen a weapon like this. They did not know how to defend against it. They tried to retreat, but the human fleet was in the way. They tried to fight, but humanity was no longer fighting cautiously. Human ships rammed Imperial vessels at relativistic speeds, sacrificing themselves to take out larger targets. Human fighters loaded with nuclear weapons flew directly into Imperial cruisers' engines. Human boarding parties used suicide tactics to capture and destroy Imperial command ships. War Master Krell watched his fleet being torn apart. What are they doing? They are throwing away their lives. Lord Vexthor, still serving as his advisor, understood. They are showing you what humans will do for freedom. They are showing you that they would rather die fighting than live as slaves. This is what the Empire never understood. You cannot defeat an enemy that values freedom more than life. The Battle of New Harvest lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the 3 Imperial fleets had been reduced to 800 ships. They retreated, leaving behind thousands of soldiers stranded on the planet. The Third Terran Fleet had lost 100 ships, including many that had deliberately sacrificed themselves. Captain Marcus Webb walked through the damaged corridors of the Indomitable after the battle. The ship had taken heavy damage, but it had survived. Many of his crew had not. He passed bodies covered with sheets, young men and women who would never go home. Was it worth it? His second-in-command asked quietly. Marcus thought about the hospital that had been destroyed. He thought about the 3,000 civilians who had died. He thought about the 400 million people on New Harvest who were now free because of this battle. Yes, he said. It was worth it. Because if we had not fought, those people would be slaves. Or dead. At least this way they have a chance. On the Imperial homeworld, Emperor Zalthar received the news of another defeat. His hands shook with rage. 4,000 ships lost at New Harvest. Another defeat, another humiliation. Divine Majesty, we must consider negotiating, one of his advisors said carefully. The war is costing too much. We are losing ships faster than we can build them. The economy is collapsing. Tributary species are rebelling. The Empire is falling apart. No, the Emperor said. I will not negotiate with primitives. I will not admit defeat. The humans want war? Then we will give them war. Totalbar, war without limits. He turned to War Master Krell, who had returned in disgrace. Find me their homeworld. Find me Earth. We will show them what happens when they make the Empire bleed. We will destroy their birth world. We will salt the ashes. We will make sure that no trace of humanity survives. Krell bowed. It will be done, Divine Majesty. The order went out. Imperial intelligence was to locate Sol System, the home of Earth, humanity's birth world. It took them 6 weeks. When they found it, the Emperor assembled the largest fleet in the history of the Keltharian Empire, 25,000 warships. Every ship that could fly, every weapon that could fire, every soldier who could fight. The Grand Armada, its mission was simple: destroy Earth, end humanity forever. Admiral Sarah Chen received intelligence reports about the Grand Armada's assembly. Her face went pale. 25,000 ships, all heading for Earth. She immediately ordered every available fleet to Sol System. She pulled ships from border defense. She abandoned colonies. Everything focused on one goal: defend Earth. Dr. Volkov activated Project Ragnarok. The weapons that humanity had hoped never to use were now deployed in the Oort Cloud, the distant region at the edge of Sol System. If the Empire reached Earth, these weapons would fire. And if they fired, entire star systems would die. We are going to turn Sol System into a grave, Elena said. If the Empire wants Earth, they will pay a price so high that the galaxy will remember it for 10,000 years. Captain Marcus Webb received orders to take what remained of the Third Fleet and establish a defensive line at the edge of Sol System. His job was to slow down the Grand Armada, to buy time for the main fleet to arrive. 200 human ships against 25,000 Imperial vessels. It was suicide. Everyone knew it, but no one questioned the order. Marcus gathered his officers. "We are all going to die," he said bluntly. "The only question is how much time we buy for Earth. Every minute we hold is one more minute for Admiral Chen to prepare. Every Imperial ship we destroy is one less threat to our homeworld." His tactical officer, Commander Rachel Kim, smiled grimly. "Then let us make them remember us. Let us make them wish they had never heard the name of humanity." The human fleet took up position at Neptune's orbit, the outermost planet of Sol System. They prepared weapons, made peace with themselves, and waited for the enemy to arrive. The Grand Armada emerged from faster-than-light travel like a wave of steel and fire. 25,000 ships filling space from horizon to horizon. They saw the 200 human ships waiting and laughed. This would be over in minutes. Marcus Webb opened a channel to all his ships. "This is it. This is what we have trained for. This is what humanity needs from us. We are the shield. We are the line. We are the last defense between Earth and extinction. Do not yield. Do not retreat. Do not surrender. And if we must die, then we die standing, with our faces to the enemy and our backs to home." He closed the channel and gave the final order. "All ships, engage." 200 human ships charged at 25,000 Imperial vessels. It was magnificent. It was terrifying. It was the most one-sided battle in the history of warfare. And humanity fought anyway, because that is what humans do. They fight impossible odds. They stand against the darkness. They refuse to surrender, even when surrender is the only logical choice. The Battle of Neptune had begun, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. The Battle of Neptune lasted 6 days. Captain Marcus Webb and his 200 ships fought with everything they had. They used Neptune's gravity to slingshot themselves at impossible speeds. They hid in the planet's ice rings and ambushed Imperial ships. They mined the debris field with nuclear weapons and lured the enemy into traps. On the first day, they destroyed 300 Imperial ships. It seemed like a victory until Marcus realized he had lost 40 ships. At this rate, his fleet would be gone in 5 days, and the Grand Armada would still have over 20,000 ships left. On the second day, Marcus sent fighter squadrons on suicide runs deep into the Imperial formation. The pilots knew they would not return, but they went anyway. They destroyed another 400 ships before the last fighter was shot down. On the third day, the human fleet pulled back to Uranus. They had 100 ships left. The Grand Armada had lost 1,200 vessels but barely noticed. They kept coming, relentless as a tide. On the fourth day, Marcus received a message from Admiral Chen. The main Terran fleet was almost ready. Just 2 more days. Could he hold for 2 more days? Marcus looked at his tactical display. 60 ships left. The Imperial fleet was learning their tactics, adapting to their tricks. 2 more days seemed impossible. "Yes," he transmitted back. "We will hold." On the 5th day, the human fleet made its stand at Saturn. They used the planet's rings as cover, turning the massive field of ice and rock into a weapons platform. Every rock became a missile. Every piece of debris became shrapnel. The humans and Imperial forces fought among the rings, ships weaving between icy boulders the size of mountains. Commander Rachel Kim died that day. Her ship was surrounded by Imperial cruisers. Rather than surrender, she set her reactor to overload and rammed the largest enemy vessel. The explosion destroyed 7 Imperial ships and opened a gap in their formation that Marcus exploited ruthlessly. By the end of the 5th day, Marcus had 20 ships left. The Grand Armada had lost 3,000 vessels. It was the most successful delaying action in human history. It was also a slaughter. On the 6th day, Marcus received new orders. Admiral Chen had arrived with the main fleet. Marcus was to pull back to Jupiter and join the final defensive line. Only 15 ships remained to receive the order. Marcus looked at his exhausted crew, at the damaged ship around him, at the 15 other vessels that had survived 6 days of hell. They had bought the time Earth needed. Now it was Admiral Chen's turn. The Grand Armada reached Jupiter orbit and found 800 human warships waiting. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, the TCS Defiance, and studied the enemy fleet. 22,000 ships. Even with Marcus's heroic stand, the numbers were overwhelming. "Admiral, we are outnumbered 25-1, Commander Park said quietly. "I know," Sarah replied. "But we have something they do not have. We have Earth at our backs. We have nowhere to retreat. And we have the determination to win at any cost." She opened a channel to the entire Terran fleet. Her voice was calm, steady, as if she were discussing the weather rather than the most important battle in human history. "This is Admiral Chen. The Imperial Grand Armada has come to destroy our home world. They think that because they are many and we are few, victory is certain. They have forgotten the most important lesson of warfare. Numbers mean nothing against will. We are here because we choose to be. We fight because we choose to fight. We will win because we refuse to lose. All ships stand ready, and remember, no matter what happens today, Earth must survive." Emperor Zalthar watched the battle through quantum link from his throne room. He had never personally commanded a battle before. That was what generals were for. But this was too important. He wanted to see humanity's end with his own eyes. "Begin the assault," he ordered. "Destroy them all." The Grand Armada advanced. 800 human ships moved to meet them. The battle began. This was not like the earlier fights. This was not hit-and-run tactics or clever ambushes. This was a straight fight, fleet against fleet, with humanity's survival hanging in the balance. The Indomitable, with Captain Marcus Webb commanding from his battered bridge, fired its stellar compression cannon again and again. Each shot erased an Imperial carrier from existence. But the weapon took time to recharge, and there were so many targets. Human cruisers formed defensive walls, their shields overlapping to protect the more valuable dreadnoughts. Imperial battleships hammered at those shields with everything they had. Human destroyers darted through the chaos, launching torpedoes at point-blank range before retreating. Dr. Elena Volkov watched from her command post in the Oort cloud, where Project Ragnarok was waiting. The hidden weapons platforms were tracking the battle, ready to fire if needed. She prayed they would not be needed, because if Project Ragnarok fired, it would mean humanity had lost. It would mean they were using their final weapon, the one that would destroy the Grand Armada but might also cripple Sol System itself. The battle raged for hours. Human ships exploded in silent fury. Imperial vessels died by the dozens. Space filled with debris and escape pods and the frozen bodies of soldiers from both sides. Admiral Chen made hard decisions. When a human cruiser's shields failed, she did not send rescue ships. She could not afford to. When an entire squadron was surrounded, she ordered them to self-destruct rather than let the Empire capture them. Every choice was terrible. Every choice was necessary. Lord Vexthor stood beside Emperor Zalthar, watching the battle unfold. "Divine Majesty, this is not the easy victory we expected. The humans are fighting with incredible skill. They are dying," the Emperor said. "That is all that matters. We will overwhelm them with numbers. Divine Majesty, we have lost 4,000 ships. The humans have lost only 200. At this rate we still win," the Emperor interrupted. "We have 20,000 ships left. They have 600. Simple mathematics, but war is never simple mathematics." The human fleet had been fighting together for 2 years. They knew each other's tactics. They trusted each other completely. The Imperial fleet was massive, but many of the ships had never fought together before. Their communication was slower. Their coordination was worse, and humanity had one more advantage. They were fighting for something they believed in. Freedom, home, the survival of their species. The Imperial soldiers were fighting because they had been ordered to fight. There is a difference. After 12 hours of battle, Admiral Chen made a decision. "Signal Project Ragnarok. Prepare to fire on my command. Target the Imperial Fleet center formation." Dr. Volkov received the order and felt her stomach turn. "Admiral, if we fire Project Ragnarok, the energy release could damage Earth's outer colonies. Neptune Station will definitely be destroyed." "I know," Sarah said. "But if we do not fire, Earth itself will be destroyed." "Give the order. Fire when ready." In the Oort cloud, hidden among the ice and rocks at the very edge of Sol System, the weapons platforms of Project Ragnarok came online. These were humanity's darkest creations. Stellar compression beams powerful enough to crack planets. Quantum disruptors that could tear holes in space-time itself. Weapons so terrible that their very existence had been kept secret from most of humanity. The platforms aligned their weapons on the center of the Imperial formation. where the Emperor's flagship Eternal Glory commanded the Grand Armada. Dr. Volkov entered the firing codes with shaking hands. "Project Ragnarok is ready," she reported, firing in 10 seconds, but before she could fire, something unexpected happened. The Indomitable, Marcus Webb's battered warship, broke formation and accelerated directly toward the Eternal Glory. The ship's engines were running at 200% power, far beyond safe limits. The hull was coming apart from the stress. "What is Marcus doing?" Admiral Chen demanded. On the Indomitable's bridge, Marcus had made his final decision. His ship was dying. The reactor was failing. The weapons were offline. He had one move left. "All crew, this is the captain," he transmitted. "Abandon ship. Get to the escape pods now." "That is an order." "Sir, what are you doing?" his tactical officer asked. Marcus smiled. "What humans do best. Improvising." He set the ship's course directly for the Eternal Glory. The Indomitable was still accelerating, still moving faster and faster. In space, without friction, there was no limit to how fast a ship could go if it kept accelerating. Emperor Zalthar saw the human ship coming and laughed. "One ship? They think one ship can hurt my flagship? Destroy it." Imperial weapons fired at the Indomitable. The human ship's shields were already down. The weapons hit the hull directly, tearing through armor, destroying compartments, killing anyone who had not made it to the escape pods. But the ship kept coming. It was held together now only by Marcus's will, and the desperate hope that it would survive long enough to hit its target. Marcus sat alone on his bridge. He had sent everyone else to the escape pods. He was the only one left, hands on the controls, guiding his dying ship toward its final target. He thought about his childhood on Mars. He thought about joining the military to protect his family. He thought about all the battles he had fought, all the friends he had lost. He thought about Commander Kim, who had died at Saturn. He thought about the 200 ships that had followed him into hell and back. "This is for Earth," he whispered. "This is for humanity. This is for everyone who ever dreamed of freedom." The Indomitable hit the Eternal Glory at 90% of light speed. The impact released more energy than 100 nuclear weapons. The Eternal Glory's shields, designed to stop energy weapons, might as well have not existed. The Indomitable punched through the Imperial flagship like a bullet through paper. Both ships exploded in a ball of plasma that could be seen from Earth. The explosion destroyed 30 Imperial vessels that had been close to the flagship. The shockwave damaged hundreds more. Emperor Zalthar died instantly, along with 5,000 of his personal guard and the entire command staff of the Grand Armada. The Empire's chain of command simply ceased to exist. Admiral Chen watched in shock. "Marcus!" The Imperial fleet fell into chaos. Without their emperor, without their command structure, the ships did not know what to do. Some tried to continue the attack. Some tried to retreat. Some simply stopped, waiting for orders that would never come. "All ships, press the attack," Sarah ordered. "And this now." The human fleet surged forward. Without coordination, the Imperial ships were vulnerable. Human warships tore into them mercilessly. Dr. Volkov's Project Ragnarok fired at last, its terrible weapons destroying entire formations of enemy vessels. The battle lasted 3 more days, but the outcome was decided in the moment the Indomitable hit the Eternal Glory. The Grand Armada broke. Some ships surrendered. Some ships fled. Some ships fought to the death. But as an organized force, it ceased to exist. When the smoke cleared, only 2,000 Imperial ships escaped Sol system. Admiral Chen's fleet had lost 600 ships. Earth was safe. Sarah stood on the bridge of the Defiance and looked at Earth through the view screen. The planet was scarred. Debris from the battle had fallen into the atmosphere, burning up as it entered. The orbital defense stations were damaged. But Earth was alive. Humanity survived. "Get me a casualty report," she ordered quietly. Commander Park worked his console. 2,300,000 dead, Admiral. Most of them in the fleet actions. Another 500,000 wounded. Sarah closed her eyes. 2 million dead. 2 million sons and daughters, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, all dead to protect freedom. "Make sure their names are recorded," she said. "Every single one. And when this is over, we will build a memorial. We will make sure that everyone who comes after knows what was paid here." She thought about Marcus Webb, who had been like a son to her. She thought about his sacrifice, his courage, his determination to save Earth even if it cost him everything. "Captain Webb will receive the Star of Terra," she said. "Posthumously. and his name will be first on the memorial. On the Imperial homeworld, chaos erupted. The Emperor was dead. The Grand Armada was destroyed. The government was in ruins. Different factions immediately began fighting for control. Some wanted to continue the war. Some wanted peace. Some wanted to break away and form their own empires. Lord Vexthor, who had survived because he was not on the eternal glory during the battle, saw an opportunity. He gathered reformist military commanders and launched a coup. Within 3 days, he controlled the Imperial capital. His first act was to send a message to Terran Command. Admiral Chen, this is Premier Vexthor of the reformed Caltharian Commonwealth. The old empire is dead. I propose an immediate ceasefire and negotiations for peace. Humanity has proven that you cannot be conquered. It is time to accept this and move forward. Sarah Chen received the message and felt relief wash over her. Peace. Finally peace. But even as she prepared to respond, reports were coming in from across the galaxy. 27 species had declared independence from the Empire. Warlords were carving out their own territories. Pirates were raiding undefended worlds. The collapse of the Empire was creating a power vacuum, and that vacuum was filling with violence. The galaxy was descending into chaos, and the Galactic Council was sending an urgent message to humanity. Help us. We need peacekeepers. We need someone strong enough to stop the violence, but wise enough not to become the next empire. We need you. Admiral Sarah Chen looked at the message and realized that humanity's war was not over. It was just beginning. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Sol. The galaxy was burning. Without the Empire to maintain order, old conflicts erupted into open warfare. Species that had been enemies before the Empire conquered them now fought each other again. Pirates raided defenseless colonies. Warlords carved out petty kingdoms from the ruins. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the memorial hall on Earth. The wall stretched for 47 kilometers, carved into the mountainside near the Terran Command headquarters. On it were inscribed 2,300,000 names. Every human who had died in the war with the Empire. She found Marcus Webb's name at the very beginning. Captain Marcus Webb, Star of Terra, who had sacrificed himself to save Earth. She touched the carved letters gently. We won, Marcus, she said quietly, but I am not sure what we won. Her communicator buzzed. Commander Park's voice was urgent. Admiral, the Galactic Council is here. They are requesting an immediate meeting. Sarah took one last look at the memorial and headed to the command center. The council representatives were already waiting when she arrived. There were 12 of them, representing the major species that had formed the council to try to maintain order after the Empire's fall. The lead representative was a Drazen, a species with green scales and multiple arms. She spoke through a translator device. Admiral Chen, thank you for meeting with us. I am Counselor 6. We have a grave situation. I have read the reports, Sarah said. 50 systems are at war. Refugee crisis affecting billions. Food shortages. The galactic economy is collapsing. Yes, 6 said. The Empire was cruel, but it provided order. Now there is only chaos. We have tried to organize peacekeeping forces, but no one respects the Council's authority. Warlords ignore our orders. Pirates laugh at our threats. What do you want from humanity? Sarah asked, though she already knew. We want you to be our peacekeeping force, another counselor said. You are the only species that defeated the Empire. You have the military strength. You have the will to fight. You can restore order. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. You want us to become the new Empire? No, 6 said quickly. We want you to be different. We want you to protect people, not rule them. We want you to stop aggression, not commit it. We want you to guarantee freedom, not take it away. And what makes you think we would be any different? Sarah asked. Power corrupts. You give us authority over the galaxy, and eventually we might become exactly what we fought against. Dr. Elena Volkov entered the meeting room. She had been listening from her laboratory. Admiral, may I speak? Sarah nodded. Elena addressed the council. I understand your fear. I share it. I spent years building weapons to destroy the Empire. I know what humans are capable of when threatened. But I also know something else. We did not fight the Empire to conquer. We fought to be free. That means something. Words are easy, one of the counselors said skeptically. Action is what matters. Then let us propose conditions, Sarah said. She brought up a holographic display. Humanity will help, but under strict rules. First, we will only deploy peacekeeping forces when requested by a planet's government. We will not invade. We will not occupy. We will not rule. She highlighted another section. Second, all operations must be approved by the Galactic Council. We will not act unilaterally. You will have oversight. Third, Elena added, we will share defensive technology with any species that requests it. We will teach you how to protect yourselves. The goal is not to make you dependent on us, but to make you strong enough that you never need us. Counselor 6 studied the proposal. This is acceptable. But we have one more request. The Terran exclusion zone, will you open it? Sarah shook her head. No. Human space remains closed except by invitation. That is non-negotiable. We will help the galaxy, but we will not give up our sovereignty. The counselors conferred among themselves. Finally, 6 nodded. We accept your terms. When can you deploy forces? Give us 2 weeks to organize, Sarah said. Send us a list of the most critical situations. We will prioritize based on humanitarian need, not politics. After the council left, Elena turned to Sarah. Are we doing the right thing? Getting involved in galactic politics? I do not know, Sarah admitted. But I know what will happen if we do nothing. Billions will die. Species will be enslaved. Everything we fought for will be lost. We cannot hide behind the exclusion zone and pretend the galaxy's problems are not our concern. Then let us hope we are strong enough to help without becoming the monsters we defeated, Elena said. 2 weeks later, the first Terran peacekeeping force deployed to the Outer Rim. 100 human ships, carrying 10,000 soldiers and humanitarian supplies, arrived at the Kelvin system. 2 warlords were fighting over the system, and their war was killing millions of civilians. Commander Lisa Zhao, who had survived the defense of New Harvest, commanded the peacekeeping force. She had been promoted after her heroic stand against the Empire. Now she faced a new kind of battle. Attention, warlords of Kelvin, she transmitted. This is Commander Zhao of the Terran Peacekeeping Force. We are here under Galactic Council authority. Both of you will cease hostilities immediately and withdraw to neutral zones. Failure to comply will result in the use of force. The warlord controlling the Northern Territory, a Krell named Vaxis, laughed. Humans, you defeated the Empire, yes, but we are not the Empire. We are fast, cunning, and we know these systems better than you do. Leave or we will destroy you. Last warning, Lisa said calmly. Stand down. Vaxis's fleet opened fire on the human ships. It was a mistake. The Terran peacekeeping force returned fire with devastating accuracy. They were not trying to kill, but to disable. Every shot was calculated to destroy weapons and engines while leaving life support intact. Within 2 hours, both warlord fleets were floating helplessly in space, weapons offline, unable to maneuver. Not a single human ship was seriously damaged. Not a single warlord soldier was killed, though many were injured. This is Commander Zhao, Lisa transmitted to both fleets. Your weapons have been disabled. Your ships will be towed to neutral stations for repairs. You will both stand trial for war crimes. The civilians of Kelvin are under Galactic Council protection now. This war is over. News of the Kelvin operation spread quickly. Other warlords began to reconsider their ambitions. Pirates started avoiding systems where humans were operating. The galaxy was learning a new lesson. Humanity would not conquer you, but they would not tolerate you conquering others either. Meanwhile, on the former Imperial homeworld, Premier Vexthor was struggling to hold the reformed Caltharian Commonwealth together. The old empire had fractured into dozens of smaller states. Some were peaceful, some were aggressive, some were simply chaotic. Vexthor sent a message to Admiral Chen. Admiral, I need your help. Not military help. I need advice. How do I build a government based on consent rather than fear? How do I convince people that freedom is better than the old order? Sarah thought about it. Then she invited Vexthor to Earth. The former Lord Diplomat arrived at Earth 3 weeks later. It was his first time visiting a human world. He was amazed by what he saw. Earth was crowded and messy compared to the old imperial capital, but it was alive in a way the Empire never had been. People argued in the streets about politics. Artists created works that criticized the government. Scientists published research without asking permission. It was chaotic, but it was free. This is your capital? Vexthor asked in surprise. Where is the order? Where is the control? We do not control our people, Sarah explained. We serve them. They choose their leaders. They make their own decisions. It is messy and complicated, but it works because people believe in it. She took him to the memorial wall. This is what freedom costs. 2 million people died because we refused to surrender it. But freedom is not just about fighting external enemies. It is about trusting your own people to make good choices. Vexthor stared at the names carved into the stone. In the old empire, we would never honor our dead like this. Soldiers were expected to die for the emperor. It was their duty. We did not memorialize them. That is why we won, Sarah said. Because every human life mattered to us. Every name on this wall represents someone we fought to protect. Someone who chose to fight for something bigger than themselves. Over the next months, human peacekeeping forces deployed to dozens of systems. They stopped wars. They protected refugees. They distributed food and medicine to starving populations. But they also did something unexpected. Everywhere they went, they taught. Human military advisors showed planetary defense forces how to fight. Human engineers helped colonies build defensive installations. Human diplomats mediated conflicts and helped establish fair governments. Dr. Elena Volkov oversaw the technology transfer program. Humanity shared weapons technology, but only defensive weapons. They taught species how to build shields, point defense systems, and detection grids. They never shared offensive weapons like the stellar compression cannon. We are not trying to create allies, Elena explained to her staff. We are trying to create equals. The goal is to make every species strong enough to defend itself. That way no future empire can rise to dominate everyone else. One day a young alien arrived at the Terran Military Academy on Mars. Her name was Lyra, and she was from a species called the Fenari. Her world had been conquered by the old empire, and was now struggling to defend itself against raiders. She was the first non-human to apply to the academy. The admissions board debated for weeks. Finally, Admiral Chen made the decision. Accept her, Sarah said. If we are serious about helping species defend themselves, we need to train them properly. Open the academy to anyone who wants to learn. Lyra struggled at first. Human military training was brutal. It was designed for a species that had been fighting wars for thousands of years. But she persevered. She learned human tactics. She studied human history. She understood why humans fought the way they did. When she graduated 4 years later, she was wearing a Terran command uniform. She was the first of many. Within a decade, thousands of aliens would attend human military schools, learning how to protect their worlds without becoming conquerors themselves. 5 years after the Battle of Sol, Admiral Sarah Chen finally retired. She was tired. She had seen too much death, made too many hard decisions. It was time for a new generation to lead. She returned to the memorial wall one last time. The names were still there, still counting the cost of freedom. But now there was something new. At the end of the wall, a new inscription had been added. They fought so that all could be free. They died so that none would be enslaved. They proved that freedom is worth any price. Their sacrifice will never be forgotten. Below that was a list of every species that had gained independence after the empire's fall. 63 species representing 12 billion people who were now free because humanity had refused to surrender. A young officer approached. Sarah recognized her. It was Lyra, now a commander wearing the uniform of the Terran peacekeeping force. Admiral Chen, Lyra said, saluting. I wanted to thank you. My world was scheduled for conquest by the old empire. We would have been slaves or dead. But you taught us to stand. You taught us to fight. You taught us that freedom is worth defending. Sarah returned the salute. Thank you, Commander. But you earned your freedom. We just showed you how. That is more than the Empire ever did, Lyra said. The Empire would have crushed us. You made us strong. There is a difference. Sarah looked at the memorial wall, then back at Lyra. What will you do now? I am returning to my homeworld, Lyra said. I will train our defense forces. I will make sure that what happened to humanity never happens to us. We will be ready if another empire tries to conquer us. Good, Sarah said, because the galaxy will always have threats. But now it also has people willing to stand against those threats. Lyra hesitated. Admiral, can I ask you something? The Terran exclusion zone, why do you keep it? Why not open human space to the galaxy? Sarah smiled. Because boundaries are healthy. We will help the galaxy. We will protect the weak. We will ensure freedom for all. But we will not give up our own sovereignty. The exclusion zone is a reminder that we fought for the right to be left alone. It is a symbol that every species has the right to determine its own fate. She gestured to the memorial. 2 million people died to establish that right. We will not dishonor their sacrifice by giving it away. 10 years after the war, the galaxy had changed. The Galactic Council was now a true democratic assembly, with representatives from over 100 species. The reformed Caltharian Commonwealth had become a peaceful federation of worlds. Warlords and pirates still existed, but they were hunted by a coalition of forces, not just humans. The Terran exclusion zone remained closed, but humanity had become the galaxy's guardians. Not rulers, not conquerors, guardians. They intervened when species were threatened. They provided aid when disasters struck. They taught defensive warfare to anyone who asked. And they made it clear, no one would ever build another empire. No one would ever conquer billions. No one would ever deny anyone else's right to freedom. Above Earth, the beacons of the Terran exclusion zone still broadcast their message. But now it was in 10,000 languages, reaching every corner of the galaxy. Terran space. Entry by invitation only. We seek neither dominion nor tribute. We ask only to be left in peace. But to those who would conquer, enslave, or subjugate, we stand ready. By fire and will we are free, and we will ensure all who seek it may be free as well. Admiral Sarah Chen, now living a quiet life on Mars, watched the news reports of humanity's peacekeeping missions. She saw Commander Lyra leading Fennery Defense Forces to stop a pirate raid. She saw Premier Vexthor signing trade agreements based on mutual benefit rather than tribute. She saw dozens of species working together to build a new kind of galactic civilization. She thought about Marcus Webb, who had died to save Earth. She thought about all the names on the memorial wall. She wondered if they would be proud of what humanity had become. Then she smiled. Yes, they would be proud. Humanity had not become the new empire. They had become something better. They had become proof that freedom could not only survive but spread. The galaxy had learned humanity's lesson. Some things are worth fighting for. Some things are worth dying for. Freedom is one of those things. And once you taste freedom, you will do anything to keep it. The Terran exclusion zone stood not as a wall of fear, but as a promise. A promise that humanity would never bow to tyrants. A promise that they would stand with any species that wanted to be free. A promise that the price paid in blood and sacrifice would not be forgotten. By fire and will, humanity had won their freedom. By fire and will, they would protect that freedom forever. And by fire and will, they would ensure that no one else ever had to fight alone for the right to be free. The galaxy was far from perfect. There were still conflicts, still suffering, still injustice, but now there was also hope. Hope that freedom could win. Hope that might did not always make right. Hope that even small species could stand against empires and survive. And at the center of that hope stood 47 human worlds, closed to the galaxy but watching over it. Not as masters but as guardians. Not as conquerors but as allies. Not as an empire but as free people who remembered what it cost to become free. The memorial wall on Earth would stand for 10,000 years, a reminder of the price of freedom. And every generation of humans would visit it and read the names and understand what their ancestors had died for. Freedom. The simple right to choose your own path. The right to succeed or fail on your own terms. The right to be left alone if that is what you want. 2 million people had died for that right. The galaxy would never forget. And humanity would never stop fighting to protect it. The war with the Empire was over. But humanity's mission had just begun. They would guard freedom wherever it was threatened. They would stand against tyranny wherever it appeared. They would remember always that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. And if anyone ever forgot, they had only to look up at the stars and see the beacons of the Terran exclusion zone, still broadcasting after all these years. By fire and will, we are free. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not conquest, not domination, not tribute. Just the simple, powerful truth that freedom is worth any sacrifice, and that truth would echo through the stars for all time. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his massive warship looking out at the stars. The metal floor under his feet hummed with power. Around him, crew members worked at their stations, their blue skin glowing softly in the dim light. They were Zolarians, and they ruled most of the galaxy. The Admiral was tall, even for his people. His forearms moved with practiced ease as he checked reports on his datapad. Today would be another easy day. Another primitive world would bow before the might of the Zolarian Dominion. It always happened the same way. "Sir, we are approaching the target system," said his second-in-command, Officer Vexhan. "The locals call it Sol." Kethvar nodded. He had done this hundreds of times before. The process was simple. His fleet would arrive at a new world. They would show their power. The locals would surrender. Then the Dominion would take control and add another world to their empire. What do we know about these humans? He asked. Vexhan pulled up a holographic display. Images of pale pink creatures appeared in the air. They had only 2 arms and walked on 2 legs. They looked weak and soft. They are very young, sir. They only started flying in space about 300 years ago. They have spread to 7 planets in their system plus many space stations, but their technology is far behind ours. The Admiral smiled. 300 years was nothing. His own people had been traveling between stars for over 10,000 years. These humans were like children playing with toys. How many ships do they have? He asked. Our spies report maybe 200 military vessels. Small ones. Nothing that could threaten even one of our ships. Kethvar looked at his own fleet through the main window. 12 massive warships floated in space around his flagship. Each one was over 2 miles long and armed with weapons that could destroy a moon. Usually, he only brought 1 ship to handle, a primitive world. He had brought 12 because the Emperor wanted this done quickly. Sir, we could probably handle this with just our flagship, Vexhan said. These humans have never seen real space combat. They have been fighting small wars among themselves, but nothing serious. The Admiral agreed. From what he had read, humans spent most of their time fighting each other over silly things like land and resources. They had dozens of different governments that could not agree on anything. It would be easy to make them surrender. Begin the approach, he ordered. Standard formation. We will park our ships where they can see them clearly. The fleet moved toward the inner part of the Sol system. As they traveled, Kethvar thought about his long career. He had conquered over 40 worlds for the Dominion. Some had tried to fight back, but it never lasted long. When a primitive species saw the true power of advanced technology, they always gave up. The key was to show overwhelming force right away. The Dominion had learned this lesson long ago. If you made the enemy understand that resistance was hopeless, they would surrender without wasting lives. It was actually quite merciful. Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the 3rd planet. They call it Earth. Put it through, the Admiral said. He straightened his uniform and prepared to look impressive and threatening. A human face appeared on the main screen. It was a female with brown skin and short black hair. She wore a military uniform that looked almost comical compared to Zalarian armor. This is Admiral Chen of the United Earth Fleet, she said. You have entered our space without permission. State your intentions. Kethvar was surprised. Most primitive species either panicked or tried to hide when they saw his ships. This human seemed calm. She even sounded like she was giving him orders. I am Admiral Kethvar of the 47th Subjugation Fleet, he replied. You will prepare to receive Dominion officials. Your system is now under our protection. Resistance is not necessary. The human admiral tilted her head slightly. Protection from what? From war, from chaos, from the struggles that tear apart primitive civilizations, Kethvar explained patiently. The Dominion brings order and peace. You will find life much better under our rule. I see, Admiral Chen said. And if we refuse this generous offer? This was the moment when most species realized they had no choice. Kethvar gestured to his tactical officer, who sent images of the Zalarian fleet to the humans. 12 massive warships appeared on their screens, each one larger than anything the humans had ever built. As you can see, refusal is not practical, the Admiral said. We have weapons that can crack planets. Your ships are toys compared to ours, but we do not wish to destroy. We wish to protect and guide. Admiral Chen studied the images for a long moment. Then she looked back at the camera. Her expression had not changed at all. I need to discuss this with my government, she said. How long will you give us to consider your offer? 1 of your days should be sufficient, Kethvar replied. We are not unreasonable. The transmission ended. The Admiral felt satisfied. The human Admiral had seen his ships and realized the truth. Tomorrow she would return with her government's surrender. It always happened this way. Sir, said his communications officer, we are detecting increased activity throughout the system. Ships are moving. Of course they are, Kethvar said. They are probably evacuating their leaders to bunkers or trying to hide their most valuable possessions. Standard behavior for a species about to surrender. But as the hours passed, something seemed wrong. The human ships were not running away or hiding. Instead, they seemed to be moving into positions around the system. More and more ships appeared on the sensors. Sir, Vexhan said nervously, we are now detecting over 800 human vessels. 800. The admiral frowned. Our intelligence said they only had 200 ships. Perhaps they were hiding some, sir. Or maybe these are cargo ships they have converted for military use. Kethvar studied the tactical display. The human ships were smaller than his warships, but there were many of them, and they were moving in patterns that seemed almost organized. Sir, incoming transmission from Earth. Admiral Chen appeared on the screen again. This time she was not alone. Behind her stood other humans in military uniforms, plus some creatures that looked like they might be from other worlds. Admiral Kethvar, she said, we have considered your offer. And, the admiral asked, though he already knew the answer. We must respectfully decline. Sol System will remain independent. Kethvar felt a moment of confusion. This was not how it was supposed to go. Admiral Chen, perhaps you do not understand the situation. We have 12 ships capable of destroying your entire civilization. We understand perfectly, she replied. The question is, do you understand ours? What do you mean? Admiral Chen smiled, and for some reason that smile made Kethvar feel uncomfortable. We know about your empire, Admiral. We have been listening to your communications for decades. We know how you operate. You arrive with superior ships, make threats, and expect surrender. It works because most species are not prepared for war. And you are prepared? Kethvar asked. Admiral, my people have been preparing for war since we first looked up at the stars and wondered if anyone was out there. When we found out the answer was yes, we asked ourselves one simple question. How do we fight someone bigger and stronger than us? The Admiral felt the first stirring of doubt. Your ships cannot match ours. No, they cannot, Chen agreed. But that does not mean we cannot fight. Suddenly, alarms began ringing on the Zalarian bridge. The tactical officer called out, Sir, human ships are moving. They are not attacking directly. They are surrounding us. Kethvar looked at the display in growing alarm. The human ships had been hiding behind planets, asteroids, and space stations. Now they were coming out, not in a direct assault, but in complex patterns that split his fleet apart. Sir, they are using the asteroid belt as cover. We cannot get clear shots at them. Then blast through the asteroids, the Admiral ordered. Sir, when we fire at the asteroids, they break apart and, oh no. Kethvar watched in shock as his powerful energy beams shattered large asteroids into thousands of smaller rocks. The debris did not float harmlessly away. Instead, it flew toward his ships like bullets fired from a giant gun. They are using our own weapons against us, Vexhan said in amazement. More alarms sounded. Human ships were attacking from all directions, never staying still long enough for the Zalarian gunners to target them effectively. They moved like insects, darting in to strike and then vanishing behind cover. Sir, the Devastator is reporting heavy damage. Human ships rammed their engine section. Rammed? Kethvar could not believe it. They crashed their own ships into ours? Yes, sir. Multiple ships. They seem to be using suicide attacks. The Admiral stared at the battle display. This was impossible. No civilized species fought like this. Ramming attacks were the tactics of desperate animals, not intelligent beings. Admiral, came Chen's voice over the communications. This is your last chance to withdraw. Leave our system now and we will let your remaining ships go. You cannot be serious, Kethvar said. We still have more firepower than your entire fleet. Yes, but you also have something we do not, Chen replied. What is that? Something to lose. As if to prove her point, another human ship crashed into one of his cruisers. The human vessel was destroyed instantly, but the Zalarian ship lost its main engines and began drifting helplessly. Kethvar realized with growing horror that these humans were willing to die to win. Not just willing, they seemed to consider it an honor. His own people were brave, but they fought to live and return home to their families. These humans fought like death meant nothing to them. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "we have lost 6 ships. The humans show no signs of slowing their attacks." The admiral looked around his bridge. His crew members were frightened. They had never faced an enemy like this. In all their wars of conquest, no species had ever fought back with such determination. "All ships, withdraw to safe distance," he ordered. "Prepare for hyperspace jump." "Sir?" Vexhan looked shocked. "We are retreating?" "We are regrouping," Kethvar said firmly. But he knew the truth. They were running away from an enemy that should have been easy to defeat. As his remaining ships limped toward the edge of the system, Admiral Chen's voice followed them. "Admiral Kethvar, when you report back to your superiors, make sure they understand something. We did not want this fight, but we were ready for it. If you come back with more ships, we will be ready for them too. Humans do not surrender." The transmission ended. Admiral Kethvar stood on his damaged bridge, trying to understand what had just happened. In one day, everything he knew about warfare had been turned upside down. "Prepare a message to High Command," he said quietly. "Tell them we need reinforcements. Tell them the humans are not like other species. Tell them—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Tell them we may have made a mistake." As the Zalarian ships disappeared into hyperspace, human vessels moved to rescue survivors from the wrecked alien ships. Even in victory, these strange creatures showed mercy to their enemies. But Admiral Chen knew this was only the beginning. The Zalarians would be back with more ships and better plans. When they came, humanity would need to be ready for an even bigger fight. The message was already being sent to every human world and station. The war had begun. Captain Sarah Chen sat in her command chair aboard the UES Defiance, watching the tactical display with calm eyes. 3 weeks had passed since the first Zalarian attack. Her promotion to admiral had come with the weight of defending humanity's home system. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. They were young, most of them. Earth's military had grown rapidly over the past century as humanity spread through space, but none of them had expected to face an alien empire so soon. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Torres from the communications station. "We are receiving reports from our deep space sensors. The Zalarians are coming back." Sarah nodded. She had known this day would come. The aliens would not accept defeat so easily. "How many ships this time?" "Estimated 200 vessels, ma'am. Much larger than the first fleet." Sarah felt her stomach tighten, but her expression remained calm. 200 ships. Against humanity's few hundred defenders scattered throughout the Sol system. On paper, it looked hopeless. But Sarah Chen had not become admiral by looking at papers. She had earned her rank by understanding that numbers did not always tell the whole story. "Send word to all fleet commanders," she ordered. "Operation Hornets Nest is now active." Lieutenant Torres hesitated. "Ma'am, are you sure? The casualties will be acceptable," Sarah said firmly, "because the alternative is extinction." She stood and walked to the main display where a map of the Sol system showed the positions of both human and approaching alien forces. The Zalarians were coming in a tight formation, their massive ships moving like a steel wall through space. It was exactly what she had hoped they would do. Sarah had spent her entire life studying military history. As a child, she had read about ancient battles on Earth. As a young officer, she had analyzed every war humanity had ever fought. She understood something the Zalarians did not. Advanced technology could not replace good tactics. "Ma'am," called Commander Park from the tactical station, "the alien fleet will reach the outer system in 6 hours. "Very well. Signal all units. Begin Phase 1. Across the Sol system, human ships began to move, but they did not form up for a direct battle. Instead, they scattered like leaves in the wind, taking positions behind asteroids, moons, and space. Stations. The Zalarian fleet, led by Admiral Kethvar in his rebuilt flagship, entered the system with confidence. The Admiral had brought 10 times as many ships as before. He had energy shields, powerful weapons, and armor that could stop most attacks. What he did not have was experience fighting an enemy that refused to play by the rules. Human ships detected throughout the system, reported his tactical officer. But they are not forming battle lines. Admiral Kethvar studied his display with growing confusion. The human vessels seemed to be hiding rather than preparing to fight. This made no sense. How could they win a battle by running away? Perhaps they have realized the hopelessness of their situation, suggested Officer Vexahan. They may be preparing to surrender. But Kethvar remembered Admiral Chen's last words. Humans do not surrender. Something about this felt wrong. Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the humans. Admiral Chen appeared on the screen, standing on the bridge of her ship. Behind her, Sarah could see crew members working calmly at their stations. They did not look like people about to give up. Admiral Kethvar, she said, welcome back to Sol System. Admiral Chen, the Zalarian replied, I trust you have had time to reconsider your position. As you can see, we have brought significantly more ships this time. Yes, I noticed, Sarah said. 237 vessels, if our count is correct. Quite impressive. Kethvar was surprised. How had the humans counted his ship so accurately? His fleet was still hours away from the inner system. Then you understand that resistance is futile, he said. Surrender now, and your people will be treated well under Dominion rule. Sarah smiled, the same smile that had worried him before. Admiral, has anyone ever told you about a place on Earth called Thermopylae? I do not understand the reference. Long ago, a small group of warriors held a narrow pass against a much larger army. They knew they could not win. They fought anyway. Do you know why? Kethvar felt uncomfortable again. Please explain. Because sometimes the point is not to win. Sometimes the point is to make the enemy pay such a high price for victory that they question whether it was worth it. Before the Admiral could respond, alarms began ringing throughout his fleet. Human ships were attacking from all directions, emerging from behind cover to strike and then vanishing again. But this time, the attacks were different. The humans were not trying to destroy his ships directly. Instead, they targeted specific systems. Engines, sensors, communication arrays. They were trying to disable rather than destroy. Sir, the destroyer squadron reports they are being attacked by small human fighters. The fighters are too small and fast for our main guns to target effectively. Kethvar watched in amazement as tiny human ships, no bigger than cargo shuttles, swarmed around his massive cruisers like angry insects. Each fighter carried missiles designed to penetrate ship armor at specific weak points. How do they know where to strike? He demanded. Sir, it appears they have detailed information about our ship designs. The Admiral felt a chill. During the first battle, the humans had captured several damaged Zalarian vessels. They must have studied them, learned their weaknesses. Sir, Squadron 7 reports heavy damage. Human ships are using some kind of new weapon. On the tactical display, Kethvar watched human vessels fire what looked like simple metal bars at his ships. The bars moved incredibly fast, powered by magnetic accelerators. When they hit, they punched through even advanced Zalarian armor like it was paper. Kinetic weapons, his science officer explained. Crude but effective. They accelerate simple projectiles to tremendous speeds. But the energy requirements must be enormous, Kethvar protested. Yes, sir. But humans seem to have solved that problem by using their entire industrial base. Every space station, every mining platform, every cargo ship has been converted into a weapons platform. The Admiral stared at his tactical display. The humans had turned their entire civilization into a weapon. Every asteroid mining operation now launched metal projectiles at his ships. Every space station fired missiles. Even civilian transports had been armed with military equipment. Sir, we are detecting massive energy signatures from the human ships. They appear to be overloading their reactors. For what purpose? His question was answered moments later as a human destroyer, its hull glowing white-hot, crashed directly into one of his battleships. The explosion was enormous, destroying both vessels instantly. Another ramming attack? Vex-Han asked in disbelief. But this was not like the desperate ramming attacks from the first battle. This was coordinated, planned. Human ships were deliberately sacrificing themselves to take out specific Zilarian vessels. Sir, the humans are targeting our command ships specifically. They know which vessels contain our senior officers. Kethvar realized with growing alarm that the humans were not just fighting. They were hunting his commanders. Every attack was designed to disrupt Zilarian command and control. How can they coordinate so effectively? He demanded. We are jamming their communications. Sir, they appear to be using a communication method we cannot intercept. Some kind of quantum entanglement system. The Admiral watched as his carefully planned assault dissolved into chaos. His ships were scattered across the system, unable to support each other effectively. Human forces struck wherever his fleet was weakest, then vanished before he could respond. Worst of all, the humans seemed to be enjoying themselves. Intercepted communications revealed crew members making jokes during combat, placing bets on which ship would score the next hit, even singing songs while under fire. Sir, the Retribution reports critical damage. They are requesting permission to withdraw. Granted, Kethvar said, another of his best ships, crippled by an enemy that should have been crushed hours ago. Admiral, came Chen's voice over the communication system. I hope you are beginning to understand our position. Your position appears to be suicidal, Kethvar replied. Not suicidal, Sarah corrected. Committed. There is a difference. We fight because this is our home. You fight because your emperor told you to. Which of us do you think has more reason to win? The Admiral had no answer for that. In all his years of conquest, he had never faced an enemy that fought for something they believed in, rather than something they were ordered to do. Sir, we have lost 40 ships. Human casualties appear to be minimal. Minimal? How is that possible? They evacuate their crews before ramming attacks. The ships are controlled by artificial intelligence during the final approach, and their smaller vessels are heavily automated. Most attacks are carried out by machines rather than living beings. Kethvar felt sick. The humans were using technology not to make war easier, but to make sacrifice more effective. They had found a way to fight with the determination of suicide, attacks while preserving their people. Sir, incoming priority transmission from Fleet Command. Admiral Morden wishes to speak with you directly. The Admiral's superior appeared on a secondary screen. Admiral Morden was old, even for a Zilarian, and his 4 eyes burned with anger. Admiral Kethvar, explain to me why your fleet is retreating from a primitive world. Sir, the humans are not primitive. They are unlike any enemy we have faced. They have been in space for 3 centuries. We have ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Yes, sir, but they have spent those 3 centuries learning how to kill each other. They are very good at it. Admiral Morden's expression grew dangerous. Are you telling me that the might of the Dominion cannot defeat a single world? Sir, I am telling you that this single world has been preparing for war their entire existence. They do not fight like a civilization trying to preserve itself. They fight like a weapon trying to destroy its target. The communication ended abruptly. Kethvar knew he would face serious consequences for this failure, but right now his concern was keeping his remaining ships intact. All vessels, withdraw to rally point 7, he ordered. We will regroup and... Sir, human ships are pursuing. They are not letting us withdraw cleanly. Sarah Chen's voice came over the speakers one more time. Admiral Kethvar, before you leave, I want you to understand something. We did not start this war, but we will finish it. Every ship you send, we will destroy. Every world you threaten, we will defend. This is what happens when you try to conquer a species that considers war an art form. As the battered Zilarian fleet limped away from Sol System, Admiral Kethvar composed his report with shaking hands. How could he explain to his superiors that humanity had turned warfare into something he had never seen before? The humans did not just fight to win, they fought to teach their enemies that some victories cost more than defeats. Behind them, human ships began salvaging the wrecks of Zalarian vessels, learning more about their enemy's technology. Sarah Chen stood on her bridge, already planning for the next battle. Because she knew the Zalarians would be back, and when they came, humanity would be ready. Emperor Zexthor stood in the great throne room of the Dominion capital, his forearms crossed in anger. The massive chamber was built to intimidate, with walls that stretched up into darkness and columns that could hold up mountains. For 3,000 years, no enemy had ever threatened this place. Now, reports of defeat kept arriving from the frontier. 2 fleets, the Emperor said, his voice echoing off the stone walls. 2 of our finest fleets defeated by a single primitive world. Admiral Morden knelt before the throne, his blue skin pale with fear. Around the chamber, other high-ranking officials watched nervously. Failure was not something the Dominion dealt with well. Your Imperial Majesty, Morden said carefully, the humans are not what our intelligence report suggested. They fight with tactics we have never encountered. They are barely out of their own system. Zexthor roared. How can creatures that learned to fly yesterday defeat warriors who have conquered half the galaxy? General Krovex, the Dominion's chief military strategist, stepped forward. She was older than most Solarians, her skin marked with scars from many battles. Majesty, I have studied the battle reports carefully. The humans do not fight like other species. They have turned warfare into art. Explain. Most species we conquer fight to defend their homes and families. They want to survive. But humans seem to fight for the pleasure of fighting itself. They take risks that no rational being would take. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. You are saying they are insane? No, Majesty. I am saying they are dangerous in a way we never expected. They study war the way our scientists study physics. They create new tactics for entertainment. They have games where children learn military strategy. Zexthor turned to his intelligence chief, Minister Yarthan. What do our spies tell us about human society? The minister's voice shook slightly. Majesty, human history is disturbing. They have been fighting wars continuously for their entire recorded history. They have invented thousands of different ways to kill each other, and they remember all of them. What do you mean? They study their past wars like we study sacred texts. Every battle, every tactic, every victory and defeat is recorded and analyzed. They learn from enemies who died thousands of years ago. General Krovex nodded grimly. This explains why they fought so effectively against us. They were not improvising. They were using tactics developed over millennia of constant warfare. Emperor Zexthor began to pace, his footsteps echoing through the chamber. The Dominion had conquered hundreds of worlds by following a simple formula. Show overwhelming force, accept surrender. Establish control. It had worked for thousands of years. If their tactics are so effective, he said, why did they never conquer other worlds before we arrived? Because they were too busy fighting each other, Minister Yarthan replied. Until recently, they were divided into nearly 200 separate nations. They spent more time warring among themselves than exploring space. And now? Now they are united against us. We have given them a common enemy. The Emperor stopped pacing. A terrible thought was forming in his mind. Minister, how many humans are there? Approximately 12 billion in the Sol system, Majesty, but they are rapidly expanding to other worlds. 12 billion warriors, Zexthor whispered. Not all of them are warriors, Majesty, Admiral Morden said quickly. Many are civilians, scientists, workers. No, General Krovex interrupted. You misunderstand human society. Every human is trained for war. It is part of their culture. Even their children play games that teach combat tactics. Their entire civilization is a military organization disguised as a peaceful society. Silence fell over the throne room. The implications were staggering. The Dominion was not facing a single world defended by a small military. They were facing an entire species that had evolved to be warriors. Majesty? Came a new voice from the entrance. A communications officer rushed in, his face pale with panic. Urgent news from the frontier worlds. Speak. The humans have left their system. They are attacking our colonies. Emperor Zexthor felt his blood turn cold. Attacking how? Small groups, Majesty. They appear at our worlds without warning, strike our military installations, and vanish before our fleets can respond. General Krovex closed her eyes. They are using our own tactics against us. Hit and run attacks. We taught this to our own forces for dealing with rebellions. But how do they travel so far so fast? The Emperor demanded. Their ships are slower than ours. The communications officer swallowed nervously. Majesty, they appear to be using captured Dominion vessels, ships they took during the battles at Sol. Impossible. Our ships have security systems, which the humans have apparently bypassed, Admiral Morden said quietly. Majesty, these creatures learn very quickly. They reverse engineer our technology, improve upon it, and use it against us. More officers began arriving with reports. Each one brought worse news. 3 supply convoys destroyed in the Kethmar sector. Orbital shipyards at Vextoran under attack. Communication relay at Mordashk completely destroyed. Emperor Zexthor listened to the reports with growing horror. The humans were not just defending their home. They were going on the offensive, striking at Dominion infrastructure throughout their territory. How many human ships are involved in these attacks, he asked. Unknown, Majesty. They use different ships for each attack. Some appear to be modified cargo vessels. Others are clearly military designs we have never seen before. General Krovex studied the tactical displays. They are targeting our supply lines and communication networks. Classic asymmetric warfare. They cannot defeat our main fleets, so they are trying to starve and blind us instead. More reports coming in, another officer announced. The humans are broadcasting messages to our client species. They are encouraging rebellion. What kind of messages? Technical information, Majesty. Instructions for building weapons, coordinating resistance, disrupting Dominion control systems. They are teaching other species how to fight us. Zexthor felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. For 3,000 years, the Dominion had maintained control through fear and superior technology. Now the humans were sharing the tools of resistance with every oppressed world in the galaxy. Majesty, Minister Yarthon said quietly, we are receiving reports of uprisings on 17 worlds. Species that have been peaceful for centuries are suddenly building weapons and attacking our garrisons. Using human tactics? Yes, Majesty. The same hit-and-run methods, the same targeting of our infrastructure. It appears the humans have created an instruction manual for rebellion and distributed it throughout our territory. Admiral Mordoon looked up from his datapad. Majesty, I recommend we assemble the Grand Armada. 500 ships. We can crush the human homeworld and end this before it spreads further. 500 ships? General Krovex shook her head. Admiral, you still do not understand what we are facing. The humans do not think like us. They do not care about preserving their homeworld if they can damage us enough in the process. What do you mean? I mean they might destroy their own planets rather than let us capture them. I mean they might fill their entire system with nuclear mines and dare us to enter. I mean they might evacuate their population and turn Sol into the largest weapon in history. The Emperor stared at his general. You think they would destroy themselves? Majesty, these are creatures who ram ships into our vessels while singing songs. They evacuate their crews and let artificial intelligence control suicide attacks. They have already shown they value victory over survival. A new communication came in, this one directly from the front lines. Admiral Kethavar appeared on the main screen, his uniform torn and his expression haunted. Majesty, I must report that the human offensive has reached the Morketh system. They have destroyed our main fleet base there. How many ships did they use? The Emperor demanded. 7, Majesty. 7 small vessels against our entire garrison fleet. 7 ships defeated an entire fleet? They did not fight us directly. They turned our own base against us. Somehow they infiltrated our computer systems and caused our automated defenses to attack our own ships. Then they detonated the fuel storage facilities while our fleet was trying to dock for repairs. Silence fell over the throne room again. The humans were not just using their own tactics effectively. They were finding weaknesses in Dominion systems that no one had ever noticed before. Admiral, General Krovik said carefully, how did they infiltrate our computers? We do not know. Our security systems show no evidence of intrusion. It is as if they understand our technology better than we do. Minister Yarthan stepped forward. Majesty, I believe I know what happened. Our intelligence reports suggest that humans approach problems differently than we do. When we encounter a new technology, we learn to use it. When humans encounter new technology, they learn to break it. Break it? They call it hacking. They study systems not to operate them, but to find flaws and exploit them. It is another form of warfare to them. Emperor Zexthor began to understand the true scope of the problem. The humans were not just good fighters. They were good at everything that could be turned into fighting. Technology, psychology, logistics, communications. They had weaponized their entire civilization. Majesty, another officer reported, we are receiving a direct transmission from the human admiral. She wishes to speak with you personally. Zexthor hesitated. No primitive species had ever demanded an audience with the Emperor. But nothing about this situation was normal. Put her through. Admiral Chen appeared on the main screen. She looked tired, but determined. Behind her, Sarah could see human officers, working calmly at their stations. Emperor Zexthor, she said, I believe it is time we talked. You dare address the ruler of the galaxy? Zexthor replied, trying to maintain his authority. I address the leader of a failing empire, Sarah said bluntly. Your fleets are scattered. Your colonies are in revolt. Your allies are questioning your strength. How long do you think you can maintain control? The Emperor's anger flared. You think you can threaten the Dominion? Emperor, I do not need to threaten you. I am simply pointing out facts. Every day this war continues. You lose, more than we do. We are fighting for our survival. You are fighting to maintain your pride. And you think pride is not worth fighting for? Sarah smiled sadly. Emperor, pride is worth dying for. But is it worth watching your entire civilization collapse? Zexthor stared at the human admiral. She was offering him something no enemy had ever offered before. A way out that did not involve complete humiliation. What are you proposing? He asked. A new arrangement. The galaxy is large enough for both our peoples, but it cannot survive the kind of war we are capable of fighting. You would accept peace? I would accept coexistence, but not under Dominion rule. The days of empire are ending, Emperor. The question is whether you will help us build something better, or whether you will force us to tear down everything you have built. The transmission ended, leaving the throne room in silence. Emperor Zexthor looked around at his advisors, seeing doubt in their eyes for the first time in his reign. The humans had not just defeated his fleets. They had proven that the Dominion's way of ruling the galaxy was no longer possible. The real war was just beginning. Dr. Lyra Vexthol stared at the data scrolling across her laboratory screens in growing amazement. As the Dominion's chief xenopsychologist, she had studied hundreds of alien species, but nothing had prepared her for the human mind. This cannot be correct, she muttered, checking her calculations again. Her assistant, a young researcher named Kevbar, looked up from his own workstation. Doctor, what are you finding? According to this analysis, humans do not fight for the same reasons as other species, Lyra said. Most civilizations wage war to defend resources, territory, or survival. But humans... She paused, struggling to understand the data. Humans appear to fight for entertainment. Entertainment? Surely you mean honor or glory? No, I mean entertainment. Look at these cultural records we captured from their communication networks. She brought up images on the main display. They create fictional stories about war. They play games that simulate battle. They study ancient conflicts that have no relevance to their current situation. Kevbar studied the display in confusion. But why would they spend time on irrelevant conflicts? Because to humans, no conflict is irrelevant. They learn from every battle ever fought by anyone, anywhere. They have turned warfare into a science. An art and a form of recreation all at the same time. The laboratory door opened and General Krovex entered. The old soldier looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes showed she had not slept in days. "Doctor, I need your analysis of human psychology. The Emperor is demanding answers." Lyra activated a holographic display showing the structure of the human brain. "General, humans are unlike any species we have encountered. Their neural development is shaped by constant competition and conflict." "Explain." "Most species evolve to cooperate within their groups and avoid conflict when possible. Humans evolved to compete constantly, even within their own communities. They turned this competitive drive into the foundation of their entire civilization." General Krovex frowned. "But competition should make them weak, not strong. A divided species cannot fight effectively." "That is where you are wrong," Lyra said. "Human competition is not like ours. They compete to become better, not to destroy each other. They use conflict to improve themselves." She brought up video recordings from human military training facilities. "Watch how they prepare for war. They do not simply learn to follow orders. They learn to think, to adapt, to overcome any obstacle. Every human soldier is trained to be a strategist. Impossible. You cannot have armies where every soldier thinks independently. Humans can. They have developed what they call mission-type orders. They tell their soldiers what needs to be accomplished, not how to accomplish it. Each individual finds their own way to contribute to victory." Kevbar looked puzzled. "But that should create chaos." "It does create chaos," Lyra agreed. "Controlled chaos. Humans have learned to use unpredictability as a weapon. Their enemies cannot predict what they will do, because they themselves do not know until the moment arrives." General Krovex studied the brain scan display. "You are saying they are naturally unpredictable?" "I am saying they have evolved to thrive in unpredictable situations. While other species seek order and stability, humans actively create disorder and then adapt to it faster than their enemies can." The general's communication device chimed. She answered it quickly. "Krovex here. General, this is Admiral Morden. We have a problem. The humans have somehow infiltrated our computer networks across 12 star systems. They are broadcasting directly to our subject populations." "What kind of broadcasts?" "Technical manuals, General. They are teaching other species how to build weapons, coordinate attacks, and disrupt our control systems. Worse, they are translating these manuals into every language in the galaxy." Lyra felt a chill as she understood the implications. "General, they are not just fighting us. They are teaching the entire galaxy how to fight us." "How is that possible? How could they learn so many alien languages so quickly?" "Because," Lyra said slowly, "learning is what humans do best. They do not just acquire knowledge, they process it, improve it, and share it. They have turned information itself into a weapon." General Krovex closed the communication and turned back to the xenopsychologist. "Doctor, I need to understand something. In all our previous conquests, subject species remained defeated. Even when they rebelled, they could never match our technology or tactics. Why are the humans different?" Lyra pulled up more data files. "Because humans approach problems fundamentally differently than any other species we have encountered. When most civilizations face a superior enemy, they try to find ways to avoid conflict. Humans ask a different question, which is, how do we kill something bigger than us?" The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Kevbar stared at his mentor in shock. "They actively seek ways to fight superior enemies?" "More than that," Lyra continued. "They prefer fighting superior enemies. Look at their entertainment, their literature, their historical records. Humans celebrate victories where they were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing impossible odds. But that is suicide. No, that is evolution. Humans became the dominant species on their planet by constantly fighting creatures larger, stronger, and more dangerous than themselves. They developed intelligence specifically to overcome physical disadvantages." General Krovex sat down heavily. "Are you telling me that our technological superiority actually makes them more dangerous, not less?" "Exactly. Every advantage we possess becomes a puzzle for them to solve. Every weapon we deploy becomes a challenge for them to overcome. We are not fighting an enemy. We are providing entertainment for a species that considers warfare their favorite game. A new alarm began sounding throughout the facility. Emergency lights flashed red as automated systems announced a security breach. Attention all personnel. Unauthorized access detected in the primary computer core. All data is being copied to external systems. General Krovex grabbed her weapon and rushed toward the door. How could anyone penetrate our security? General, Lyra called after her, check the detention level. I think our human prisoners may not be as secure as we believed. The general's face went pale. The facility held 3 captured human officers, taken during the recent battles. They had been unconscious when brought in, and security scans had shown no hidden weapons or equipment. What the scans had not detected was the humans themselves. In the detention center, Security Chief Tovron watched in amazement as the 3 human prisoners worked with calm efficiency. Somehow they had escaped their cells without triggering any alarms. Somehow, they had accessed the facility's computer systems using nothing but spare parts from their cell furnishings. How did they do this? He asked his second-in-command. Sir, they appear to have built some kind of computer interface using pieces of their cell lighting system, fragments from their food containers, and wiring pulled from the wall panels. That is impossible. Those materials cannot be used to build computer equipment. Tell that to the humans, sir. On the security monitors, Tovron watched the human officers systematically downloading every piece of information in the facility's databases. Technical specifications, tactical analyses, strategic planning documents, everything. Sir, they are also uploading something into our networks. Uploading what? Unknown, sir. But whatever it is spreading through our entire communication system. General Krovex arrived at the detention center just as the humans finished their work. She watched through the reinforced glass as the 3 officers calmly destroyed their improvised equipment and returned to their cells. Open the communication channel, she ordered. The lead human officer, a woman with short gray hair, looked up at the camera and smiled. General Krovex, I assume. How do you know who I am? We have been listening to your communications. Your security is not as secure as you think. What did you upload into our systems? The human officer's smile widened. A gift. We uploaded detailed plans for every military technology humans have ever developed. Weapons, tactics, defensive systems, everything. Why would you give us your own technology? Because we did not give it to you, General. We gave it to everyone else. Krovex felt her blood freeze. What do you mean? Your communication network connects every world in the Dominion. Right now, every species you have conquered is receiving instructions on how to build human weapons, how to use human tactics, and how to coordinate human-style resistance movements. That information will allow them to fight us more effectively, Kevbar said in amazement. That is the point, the human replied. You rule through fear and superior technology. But fear disappears when people have the tools to fight back, and superior technology becomes worthless when everyone has access to it. General Krovex stared at the human officer. You have just armed our enemies against us. No, General. We have armed your victims against you. There is a difference. You realize this means the destruction of order in the galaxy. We realize this means the end of tyranny in the galaxy. What you call order, we call oppression. What you call peace, we call slavery. The human officer stood and walked to the core, transparent wall separating them. General, your empire was built on the assumption that superior technology equals superior right to rule. But humans have learned something your people never discovered. Which is? Technology is just a tool. What matters is not how advanced your tools are, but how creatively you use them, and creativity cannot be conquered. The communication ended as the humans returned to sitting quietly in their cells. General Krovex stood in the corridor, feeling the weight of the galaxy shifting around her. In her laboratory, Dr. Lyra Vexthol watched data streams flowing through the facility's networks. The human virus was spreading through every Dominion system, carrying technical knowledge to species that had been kept deliberately primitive for centuries. Doctor, Kevbar said quietly, what happens to the Dominion if every subject species has access to advanced weapons? Lyra thought about the question. The Dominion controlled over 400 worlds through a combination of superior technology and divide-and-conquer tactics. If those subject species could suddenly communicate with each other and build effective weapons, I think, she said slowly, we are about to find out what happens when humans export revolution. Across the galaxy, on worlds that had been conquered, centuries ago ancient species read human technical manuals with growing excitement. For the first time in generations, they had hope. The Dominion had brought order to the galaxy through force, but humans were teaching the galaxy something new. Freedom was not something you asked for, it was something you took. The Great Council Chamber had never seen anything like this before. For 3,000 years it had been the place where the Zalarian Emperor announced his conquests to the galaxy. Now representatives from 67 different species sat in the ancient hall, and none of them were there to bow before imperial power. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the center of the circular chamber, her simple human uniform contrasting sharply with the elaborate robes and armor worn by the other delegates. To her right sat the Carathian ambassador, whose people had been enslaved by the Dominion for 8 centuries. To her left, the representative of the Thekron mining colonies who had never been allowed to speak in their own defense until today. Emperor Zexthor entered the chamber with only a small escort. His usual parade of guards and advisors was gone. The Dominion could no longer spare the troops for ceremony when half the galaxy was in open rebellion. The Emperor had aged years in the past months. His blue skin looked pale and tired. The weight of watching his empire crumble had broken something inside him. But he still carried himself with dignity as he took his place at the council table. I am here, he said simply. Sarah nodded respectfully. Your Imperial Majesty, thank you for coming. We know this is not easy. Easy? Zexthor laughed bitterly. Nothing about this situation is easy, Admiral Chen. 6 months ago I ruled half the galaxy. Today I can barely control my own capital system. The choice is yours, Majesty, said Ambassador Vectar of the Carathian Republic. You can continue, fighting a war you cannot win, or you can help us build something better. The Emperor looked around the chamber at faces that represented worlds he had once commanded without question. Some showed anger for centuries of oppression. Others showed pity for his fallen empire. None showed fear. What exactly are you proposing? Zexthor asked. Sarah activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed a map of the galaxy with different colored regions, representing various governments and alliances. A federation, she said. Not an empire ruled by one species, but a voluntary association of independent worlds working together for mutual benefit. The Galactic Federation? The Emperor asked. You want to replace the Dominion with a democracy? Not replace, Sarah corrected. Transform. The Dominion has infrastructure, experience, and knowledge that the galaxy needs, but it also has a system of government that no longer works in a galaxy, where every species has access to advanced technology. General Krovex, who had been given permission to attend as a military advisor, leaned forward. Admiral, what guarantee do we have that this federation will not simply become another empire once the humans gain enough power? Sarah smiled. General, that is the beauty of the human system. We designed it specifically to prevent any one group from gaining too much power. Every member world gets an equal vote regardless of size or military strength. Decisions are made by consensus, not by force. That sounds inefficient, observed Minister Yarthan. It is inefficient, Sarah agreed. Democracies are messy, slow, and frustrating, but they are also stable, fair, and adaptable. And most importantly, they do not create the kind of resentment that leads to galaxy-wide rebellion. Delegate Morkesh of the Tenthari Collective raised one of her 4 arms. What happens to species that do not wish to join this federation? They remain independent, Sarah replied. Federation membership is voluntary. We will trade with non-members, negotiate with them, even defend them if they are attacked, but we will not force anyone to join. Even if they pose a threat? Asked Ambassador Colvin from the Hegemony Worlds, especially if they pose a threat. History has shown that forced alliances create more problems than they solve. Better to have honest enemies than unwilling allies. Emperor Zexthor studied the galactic map. The colored regions showed how the galaxy might look under the proposed Federation system. Some areas remained independent, others formed smaller alliances, but the largest section was marked for the new Federation. "And what happens to me?" he asked quietly. "To my people? We have been the rulers for so long I am not certain we know how to be anything else." "That is up to you," Sarah replied. "The Zalarian Republic could be a founding member of the Federation. Your people have administrative experience that would be valuable. Your knowledge of interstellar logistics could help organize trade and communication." "The Zalarian Republic?" Zexthor repeated. "We cannot have an emperor in a democratic federation," Sarah explained gently. "But we can have an elected president, a prime minister, or whatever form of democratic government your people choose." The chamber fell silent as the emperor considered this. To give up his imperial power voluntarily was almost unthinkable. But the alternative was to watch his empire continue to collapse in civil war. "What about our military?" General Krovex asked. "The Dominion fleet is still the largest in the galaxy." "Which is why we need you," replied Admiral Chen. "The Federation will need a defense force to protect member worlds from outside threats. Your ships and experience would form the backbone of that force." "Under human command?" the general asked suspiciously. "Under federal command. Officers from all member species, with leadership positions based on merit and experience rather than political connections." Ambassador Vectar spoke up. "What about reparations? The Dominion has exploited our worlds for centuries. Do we simply forgive and forget?" Sarah nodded. "That is a fair question. The Federation proposes a reconstruction fund, financed by all member worlds according to their ability to pay. Former Dominion worlds would contribute more initially, but the goal is to rebuild rather than punish." "And if some species want revenge rather than reconstruction?" asked Delegate Morkesh. "Then they will have to pursue that outside the Federation." Sarah replied firmly. "One of our founding principles is that justice serves the future, not the past. We cannot build a better galaxy while fighting old wars." Emperor Zexthor leaned back in his chair. "Admiral Chen, I must ask you something directly. Why are you offering this? Your people have won. You could demand our unconditional surrender and rule the galaxy yourselves." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of hard-learned wisdom. "Your Majesty, humans have tried conquest before. On our own world, we built empires that lasted centuries, but every empire falls eventually, usually bringing great suffering to everyone involved. We learned that ruling others is not the same as leading them. And you think leadership is better than rule? I think cooperation is better than domination. The galaxy is vast and full of challenges that no single species can handle alone. We need the Karathian agricultural knowledge, the Thekron mining expertise, the Zalarian organizational skills. We need everyone working together, not fighting each other." The Emperor stood and walked to one of the great windows that looked out over the capital city. In the distance he could see the smoke from riots that his remaining forces could no longer control. "How do you know this Federation will work?" he asked without turning around. "We do not," Sarah admitted. "Democracy is an experiment that never ends. It requires constant effort from everyone involved. But the alternative is what we have now. Endless war and suffering. And if I refuse? If I choose to fight to the end? Then the Dominion will fall anyway, but with much more bloodshed. Your people will suffer, our people will suffer, and the galaxy will take generations to recover." Zexthor turned back to face the assembly. "And if I agree? If I transform the Dominion into this republic you envision? Then your people get to help build the future instead of being crushed by the past. Your knowledge and experience become gifts to the galaxy instead of tools of oppression." The Emperor looked around the chamber one more time. Representatives from dozens of species watched him expectantly. Some had been enemies of the Dominion for centuries. Others had been loyal allies. All of them were waiting to see if he would choose wisdom over pride. General Krovex, he said finally. In your professional opinion, can we win a continued war against this coalition? The old soldier shook her head. No, Majesty. The humans have taught too many species how to fight effectively. Every day we continue this war, we grow weaker, while they grow stronger. Minister Yarthan, can we maintain control of our remaining territories? Not for long, Majesty. The rebellions are spreading faster than we can suppress them. Emperor Zexthor nodded slowly. Then it appears our choice is between voluntary transformation and inevitable destruction. He walked back to his place at the council table and sat down formally. I, Zexthor, Emperor of the Zalarian Dominion, hereby abdicate my imperial authority and request membership for the Zalarian people in this proposed galactic federation. The chamber erupted in surprised voices. Some delegates cheered. Others looked shocked. Ambassador Vektar leaned over to Sarah. Did he just voluntarily give up the largest empire in galactic history? Yes, Sarah replied, watching as the former emperor signed the preliminary agreement. He chose the future over the past. 6 months later, Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of Federation Station, the new capital built in neutral space. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see ships from dozens of worlds docking at the massive facility. The transition had not been easy. There had been violence on some worlds where die-hard Imperial loyalists refused to accept the new order. Some species had chosen to remain independent rather than join the Federation. A few had even tried to establish their own small empires. But most of the galaxy had embraced the new system. Trade was flourishing between worlds that had never been allowed to communicate directly. Scientific knowledge was being shared freely. Military resources were being used to explore new regions instead of conquering old ones. Admiral, called Captain Torres, who had become her aide-de-camp. President Zexthor is here for your meeting. Sarah smiled at the title. The former emperor had won election as the first president of the Zalarian Republic by a wide margin. His people, it turned out, respected his wisdom in choosing peace over pride. Send him in. Zexthor entered the observation lounge looking healthier than he had in months. The burden of absolute power had been lifted from his shoulders, and he seemed younger for it. Admiral Chen, he said, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting he had learned. Or should I say Director Chen? Sarah shook his hand warmly. As the first Director General of the Galactic Federation, she now held a position with great responsibility, but limited power, exactly as the founders had intended. President Zexthor, she replied. How are the integration efforts proceeding? Better than expected. Your people were right about voluntary cooperation being more effective than forced submission. Zalarian efficiency combined with human innovation and Carathian agriculture is producing remarkable results. They stood together watching the busy traffic around the station. Ships that had once been enemies now worked side by side on joint missions. Do you ever regret it? Sarah asked quietly. Giving up your empire? Zexthor considered the question. I thought I would. For 3,000 years my people believed that strength meant domination. But humans taught us something valuable. What was that? True strength is knowing when not to use your power. The Dominion was strong enough to conquer, but not wise enough to rule. The Federation may be weaker in terms of military force, but it is stronger in every way that actually matters. Sarah nodded. The galaxy is large enough for all of us. It just took a while for everyone to figure that out. Indeed. And Admiral, thank you. For what? For showing us that there was another way. For proving that enemies can become allies, that conquerors can become partners, and that even the mightiest empire can choose to become something better. As they watched, a joint exploration fleet departed the station, heading for the unexplored regions beyond the galactic rim. The fleet included ships from 7 different species working together to discover what lay beyond the known stars. The age of empire was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had freed it.